Hey everyone, this video is a collection of 500 useless facts from my previous useless Sonic fact videos all wrapped up into one package for your viewing pleasure. I've also gone through and removed any incorrect facts and ad reads from the original uploads to make everything a bit cleaner and easier to watch. Whether you're revisiting these videos or watching them for the first time, I hope you have a good time with them. Anyways, thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy. The original release of Sonic 1 on the Genesis does not have an age rating, as it predates the creation of both Sega's short-lived video game rating council and the ESRB rating system. Re-releases of the game would graft the ESRB's kids to adult rating and its successor E for Everyone onto it. Strangely, the PlayStation Network port of the game was rated E10+ by the ESRB, however, it was changed to an E rating back in 2013. In the Game Gear version of Sonic 1, the game uses a Sega screen with a jumping Sonic sprite, whereas the Master System version lacks this intro screen since one is already provided by the console's BIOS. Sonic Eraser is one of the 4 games in the Sonic series where Dr. Eggman isn't present in any way, shape, or form, the other games being Tails Adventure, Tales of Sky Patrol, and Sonic and the Black Knight. Waku Waku Sonic Patrol Car was the first ever Sonic game to be released in arcades, and it would also go on to be referenced almost 30 years later with Sonic's friend in the movies being a cop, that person being Donut Lord. In Sonic's Casinopolis, if you deposit enough rings, you can actually build a giant statue of him in the middle of the level. If 200 rings are deposited, the statue's feet are built. If 1,000 rings are deposited, his legs and lower body are built. If 2,500 rings are deposited, the upper body and the arms and hands are built. And if 5,000 rings are deposited, the head is built. I hope all this hard work doesn't ever go to waste.
Hey, this took a while, so you should subscribe. Thanks.
When Sonic 2 originally released on the App Store back in 2013, the app used an image of Sonic based on a Sonic Advance 2 artwork, but was later changed to his artwork from Sonic 2 instead. Sega Sonic Cosmo Fighter Galaxy Patrol was only ever released in 2 countries, those being Japan and Australia. Even though the game has a full English translation, the game was never released in other English-speaking countries. So America didn't get any, which really sucks because I'd love to play this game. In Sega's Sonic Popcorn Shop, the title screen and extra life jingles are ripped straight from Sonic 1 and Sonic 2 on the Genesis. Take a listen. Sega Sonic the Hedgehog features 3 playable characters, that being Sonic, Mighty, and Ray. These 3 all wear identical shoes, the only difference being that Mighty and Ray's shoes are slightly darker than Sonic's. While Mighty and Ray's shoes have a hex number of D600000, Sonic's shoes have a hex number of F700000. Oh my gosh, we're only 9 entries in, and I'm talking about small, insignificant color changes. What is this video becoming? In the Sonic Gems Collection version of Sonic CD, the water is clear. This is because it's a direct port of the Windows 95 version rather than its original release, which utilized a certain graphics card for the water which was not emulated in the compilation. In Sonic Chaos, the background music for Mecha Green Hill Zone is a remix of Green Hill Zone from Sonic 2 8-bit, which in itself is a remix of You Can Do Anything, the main theme of Sonic CD's Japanese soundtrack. In Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, Dr. Robotnik has different colored eyes between the box art and the gameplay itself. In the gameplay, his eyes are white and have a lack of visible pupils, while in the box art, the irises are red and you can clearly see his pupils. The European version of Sonic Spinball has a notably faster intro and options theme, as well as the background music for Lava Powerhouse than any other versions of the game have. This doesn't change anything gameplay-wise though. This was actually one of my first ever Sonic games, but I could never get past Toxic Caves because I was a dumb 8-year-old kid and didn't realize you could jump before getting eaten by the fish at the bottom of the stage. In Sonic 3, Knuckles was originally meant to wear green socks. However, he was forced to wear yellow socks in the cutscenes where he meets Sonic or Tails to avoid interference with the HUD's color palette due to the Genesis or Mega Drive's hardware limitations. For Sonic Drift, each playable character has exclusive artwork showing off them next to their vehicle. Well, for Amy, besides her vehicle looking to be alive, we could see Sonic Drift imprinted onto her umbrella. In Sonic the Hedgehog's game world, if you go to the second area and go to Robotnik Bop, there's a machine of the game in the background that mentions Dr. Eggman, even in American releases of the game. This makes it the first game where the Robotnik and Eggman names are concurrently used in the American localizations in-game. Despite Tails being a mainstay in the Sonic series, Tails in the Music Maker for some reason has Tails wearing purple shoes in-game instead of the red shoes he normally wears like what we see on the box art. Okay, who really cares what color shoes Tails has at this point? Oh, apparently a lot of people. In Sonic and Knuckles, the only zone that has not appeared in a later game, at least as of right now, is the Doomsday Zone. Mushroom Hill Zone appears in Sonic Generations for 3DS, Flying Battery and Lava Reef Zone appear in Sonic Mania, Sandopolis Zone returns in Team Sonic Racing, Hidden Palace Zone returns as a part of Lava Reef Zone in Sonic Mania, and in the Adventure World of the Sonic Level Pack in LEGO Dimensions, Sky Sanctuary Zone returns in the HD versions of Sonic Generations, and the Death Egg Zone appears in Sonic Forces. Wacky World's Creativity Studio is the only Genesis/Mega Drive game to not be included in the Sonic Mega Collection and Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection. Although Sonic Triple Trouble takes place in the current canon of Sonic, the design of Dr. Robotnik on the North American and European box arts of the game more so resemble his appearance in the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog rather than his classic Eggman appearance. In Sonic Drift 2's box art, every playable character can be seen except for Fang on the North American box art. The only reason this happens is due to him being cropped out by the Game Gear border, since his vehicle is still clearly visible. Sonic Drift 2 also features the worst racetrack in the series, since the course literally blinds you every 5 seconds! In Knuckles' Chaotix, every level in the game is an alliteration. Those being Isolated Island, Botanic Base, Speed Slider, Amazing Arena, Techno Tower, and Marina Madness. A little bonus fact is that on the North American box art of the game, Knuckles and Vector are running through Speed Slider. Which is just, it's pretty cool, I guess. It's pretty cool, except the artwork kinda sucks and I like the Japanese box art better. Tails Sky Patrol sees the first villain in the series who can use powers not affiliated with the Chaos Emeralds. The main villain of the game, Witch Cart, can use her magic wand to fire green bolts of energy at anything she wants to. Tales of Adventure is called Tales' Adventures with an S at the end of the adventure in the Japanese version of the game. However, the title screen for all versions of the game says Tales Adventures regardless. According to the Japanese manual of Sonic Labyrinth, it is heavily implied that both Sonic Labyrinth and Tales of Sky Patrol take place at the same time. In the English version of Sonic the Fighter's intro, Dr. Robotnik's name was misspelled as Dr. Robotsonik, replacing the K with the C and adding in an extra O. However, if you choose to play as Dr. Eggman through secret codes or hacking, his Versus card reads Dr. Eggman with Robotnik written underneath it, spelled correctly this time. In Sonic Schoolhouse, there's a fully modeled and animated unused clock character who would provide guidance in the same way that Sonic does in the final game. I had to watch him dance for a while writing out and editing this section of the video, so no, you guys have to see him as well for this long. For the PC exclusive Sonic the Hedgehog the Screensaver game, the game allows the player to listen to music from any of the main classic Sonic games, except for the future versions of songs from Sonic CD. If you take the disc for Sonic 3D Blast and put it in a CD player, you can actually play the game's soundtrack in full. The first song is just a jumbled mess since it's trying to play the game's files as music, but after that, every song plays like normal. In Sonic Blast, the name of the game's 5 zones each begin with a color, those being green, yellow, red, blue, and silver. These colors also relate to the Chaos Emeralds found in the given zone. Sonic Jam is the only Sonic game released for the Sega Saturn to not be re-released for PCs as well. While playing Sonic Arm, you can collect an orange Chaos Emerald. Despite this, the image shown when the player beats the game with all Chaos Emeralds replaces it with a blue emerald for some reason. Sonic Jam for the Gamecom is the only Sonic game that is monochrome. Yes, this is the most interesting and most useless fact I can find for this game. I'm sorry. The Sonic browser game, Sonic's Bonus Game, is a recreation of the special stages that appear in the Genesis version of Sonic 3D Blast. That being said, the website's description for the game says that it's based on the Sega Saturn version of Sonic 3D Blast. In the Dreamcast version of Sonic Adventure 2, when running through City Escape, as you run down the streets of Central City and trick off this ramp, you can see the word "Welcome" in the grassy area beside the stairs. At least in the Dreamcast version of the game, like I said. Like all cool things in Sonic Adventure 2, this was removed in later ports of the game. In Sonic Adventure, Knuckles' theme, unknown for me, plays the least in his story compared to any other character's stories, with it only being heard one time. He's also the only character whose theme is not played at the beginning and the end of his story. A little bonus fact about Sonic Adventure is that Sonic had a rough transition into 3D. Sonic the Hedgehog Pocket Adventure is the only Sonic game to mix both classic Sonic and modern post-Dreamcast designs. Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles' in-game sprites are based on their classic sprites, but with the colored eyes that were given in Sonic Adventure. The title screen, menus, puzzles, and cutscenes all also show them in their post-Dreamcast design. Dr. Robotnik, who is wearing his classic outfit when riding in the Eggmobile at the beginning of the game, has his outfit changed to his post-Dreamcast attire when Sonic reaches Gigantic Angel Zone. Sonic Shuffle marks the only time that the current voice actor for Sonic at the time, Ryan Drummond, would also voice Knuckles in a game. The Sonic Cafe game, Amy's American Page 1, marks the only Sonic game made by Sega to have an all-female cast of characters, and the only time Amy was given a game to herself. In Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, if the player pauses the game, then holds down the X and Y buttons at the same time, the pause menu will disappear, giving the player a clear view of the screen. I guess this fact could be useful if you want to get a screenshot of the game. So, in the HD versions of the game, if you walk as Knuckles while holding something in his hand, his foot will freak out for some reason sometimes. That's about it. The 2011 Android port of Sonic Advance replaces the remix of the Invincibility theme from Sonic 1 with the game's intro theme, and the Sonic 1 and 2 boss remixes in the X Zone with boss songs from Sonic the Hedgehog 4 due to the rights of the music from Sonic 1 and 2 being owned by Dreams Come True, meaning Sega has to pay royalties every time they use those songs. Sonic Mega Collection is the only Sonic game on GameCube that lacks any kind of progressive scan support. Sonic Advance 2 is the only 2D Sonic game in which pressing up on the D-pad or control stick does not make the camera scroll upwards. While not unique to Red Mountain, since you can also do it in small sections of Knuckles' Lost World, you can actually dig up moles. It might take a couple dozen tries, but eventually you could find one, which is pretty cool. Sonic Pinball Party is the only Sonic game on Game Boy Advance to feature Metal Sonic in it.
Wow!
In Sonic Battle, for some reason, every Chaos Emerald in this game is green. As you run through the levels of Sonic Heroes, you will sometimes encounter switches that you need to pull in order to continue. All the power characters use one hand to pull the switch except for Knuckles, who uses two hands. In Sonic Advance 3, you're able to select two characters to play as. One as your player character, and the other as your partner. If you select Knuckles as the playable character and Sonic as your partner, the life symbol will look like a mirrored version of the cover of Sonic and Knuckles for the Genesis. In the 2005 mobile game, Sonic Jump, released for phones, if you look at the game's title screen, you'll see that Sonic's eyes are blue instead of his usual green. Sonic X, released for the Leapster in 2007, is a reskin of a game called Numbers on the Run Counting on Zero, released by Tauros Games. The PlayStation 2 version of Sonic Gems Collection contains both the Japanese and North American soundtracks for Sonic CD. However, there is no in-game music selection to change the soundtrack, and is all based on the console's language setting. I guess this fact could be useful since you can listen to some better music, but your whole console is in a different language you probably don't know, so pick your poison, I guess. The LCD game Sonic the Hedgehog Extreme Boarding was also released under another name, that being Sonic Skateboard. This LCD game also plays exactly like Sonic 2 and Sonic 4 Episode 2 special stages. Sonic Rush is the only Sonic game in the entire series to feature bottomless pits in every single zone. No wonder so many people complain about the bottomless pits in this game. In Shadow the Hedgehog, every single playable character from Sonic Heroes appears in Shadow the Hedgehog by either being playable or by needing to rescue them in a mission, except for Big the Cat. In the menus of Sonic Riders, if you take a look at the bottom right side of the screen, you will see the letters SR, which stands for Sonic Riders. If you look beneath those, however, you will see the text Extreme Gear, which is a misspelling of the name Extreme Gear, which is the name of the boards of the characters used throughout the game. There are so many useless facts about Sonic 06, so just let me speed through a couple of my favorites real quick. The Xbox 360 port of Sonic 06 is the only Sonic game on the console that can run at 60 frames per second, but only during in-game cutscenes. Silver's story is the only story of the main 3 campaigns to have all 3 Hedgehogs playable. While Silver hands Elise the blue Chaos Emerald in his story, he can be seen jumping through the portal with said emerald in hand in Shadow's story. And finally, Sonic 06 is the first 3D Sonic game that the Tornado does not make an appearance in. On the Sonic Rivals box art, we can see that Shadow is clearly looking at Knuckles, while in-game, it's the same artwork but he's looking forward this time. On the box art for Sonic the Hedgehog Genesis, the colors on the front box artwork have been edited to be much lighter than the original artwork, mainly on Sonic's body. On the back of the box of Sonic and the Secret Rings, it is stated that Sonic has never faced a genie before. This can be proven false as to the fact that in Sonic Riders, Sonic fought the Babylon Guardian with the Babylon Rogues. However, this might also be false because in the game Sonic Riders Zero Gravity, Babylon Guardian is revealed to be a spaceship, and the Babylon Guardian could have just been a security measure put in place. In Sonic Rush Adventure, if you head to Hidden Island 16, you may realize it feels familiar somehow. Well, it's because Hidden Island 16 shares its layout with Leaf Storm Act 1 from Sonic Rush. Mario and Sonic the Olympic Games has an interesting detail where Shadow is actually missing his tail in the artwork for this game. Shadow is also striking the same pose that Sonic does in the Japanese artwork for Sonic CD. Sonic at the Olympic Games for Java phones reuses the character select sprites from Sonic Advance 2 for all of its characters. In Route 101's second mission, collect 100 rings, if you get to the end of the track without collecting 100 rings, instead of the track looping or a ring spawning in that would take you back to the beginning of the level like what normally happens, Tails is instead awkwardly warped to the start of the track with the camera freaking out a little bit. In Sonic Riders Zero Gravity, despite Amy being a member of Team Heroes, she is playable in the Babylon story, not the hero story during the story races. However, mission mode races she is played exclusively in the hero story. Sonic the Hedgehog for the Dig reuses sprites from Sonic 3 and Knuckles on the Genesis, although its color palette is from Sonic Spinball. A little bonus fact for this game is that the game uses the Sonic logo from Sonic 06 and not that of Sonic 1 for the Genesis. In the intro for Sonic Chronicles and the Dark Brotherhood, we can see Shade the Echidna in the Mystic Ruins. In game, however, this is impossible since the player cannot return to the Mystic Ruins after they unlock Shade. In Rooftop Run Act 1 from the HD versions of Sonic Unleashed, after bursting through some gates and causing property damage, you could see an NPC reading a newspaper. Well, if you slow down and take a look at what you're running past, you can actually see a picture of Sonic 06's box art in the newspaper. In the Wii and PS2 versions of Sonic Unleashed, when Sonic picks up a box in his Werehog form, the box's shadow won't show up, but Sonic's shadow will still continue to show. The Java release of Sonic Unleashed actually has 3 distinctly different versions known as the short version, medium version, and long version. The version you can get on your phone depends on what kind of Java ME compatible phone you have. When Merlina summons Sonic into the world of King Arthur, she chants, This is actually the same phrase that Eraser Jin says in Sonic and the Secret Rings when he summons the Ifrit. Although the subtitles say different things, they both say the exact same words. Let's listen to them back to back. If you look at the box art for both versions of Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games, you can see on the Wii version that Mario is on the skis and Sonic is on the snowboard, and if you look at the DS box art, you can see that it's reversed with Mario now on the snowboard and Sonic on the skis. Sonic at the Winter Olympic Games was the first Sonic game released in the 2010s, releasing January 29th, 2010. Unfortunately, the game was pulled off the App Store only 5 days after its release. At least that's longer than King Louis XIX's rule over France. Sonic at Sega All-Stars Racing marks the first appearance of Chewie, Chew-Pee, Chew-Bay, and Chew-Botch from Choo Choo Rocket. Although the Choo-Choos originated from Choo Choo Rocket, they were only mentioned in the game's instruction manual and never physically appeared in the game itself. The Java version of Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing features a course called Curion's Mansion, just like the base game has. However, in the Java version of the game, the course is spelled wrong, spelling it with an A instead of an E. Although, the course name is spelled correct in the course itself, so it's just a really weird situation all around. Sonic Freehand, also known as Sonic the Hedgehog, was a little game released for phones back in 2010 and 2011. The music used for the title screen and the beginning of your run is a music box-like version of the title screen music and Splash Chill Zone Act 1's music from Sonic 4 Episode 1. In Sonic Classic Collection, for unknown reasons, the Sonic and Knuckles image on the game select screen and the back of the box shows Sonic standing still during the boss battle with the Egg Scrambler in Mushroom Hill Zone, with Knuckles running up to him. This never actually happens in the game, so I don't know why they made it like this. The Wii version of Sonic 4 Episode 1 has slightly different music than the other versions. The music has to be compressed because of the WiiWare's small file size limit, whereas every other version uses the proper audio files. Honestly, the Wii probably didn't need Sonic 4 Episode 1 on it at all, but oh well. Sonic Freeriders is the only Sonic game in which Sonic can be swimming without some sort of life jacket on. This can be seen towards the end of the lap in Dolphin Resort, in which the player swims underwater to continue on with the race. When Sonic Colors released, in Australia only, you could pick up a copy of the game bundled with a blue Wii Classic controller with the Sonic Colors logo printed onto it. I can't find it online for purchase, but if you have one and want to sell it to me, just let me know in the comments below. In the DS version of Sonic Colors, whenever you talk to Cream and Cheese, you can see that Cheese is missing their iconic bow tie. In Sonic Generations, after a stage is restored, a level's background noise can be heard, fading from the normal background music. This can be easily heard when muting the music. Take a listen. During the Sonic Generations 3DS launch trailer, the video shows off some classic Sonic levels and then shows off some modern Sonic levels. During modern Sonic sections, however, it shows a clip of classic Sonic's Water Palace instead of modern Sonic's Water Palace. Mario and Sonic at the London 2012 Olympic Games is the only Sonic Wii game, and the only Wii game for that matter, to be released with a yellow case instead of the Wii's traditional white color. In Sonic 4 Episode 2, the achievement called All Chaos Emeralds Found is just a vertically flipped version of the achievement Super Sonic Genesis from Sonic 4 Episode 1. In Sonic 4 Episode Metal, when Metal Sonic departs Little Planet and flies towards Mad Gear Zone in Sonic's world, a rendition of You Can Do Anything plays, being the same game's main theme in the Japanese and European versions. Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed has this neat little detail in that if the player turns down the audio for the announcer, or the audience down, the announcer will attempt to stop the player and ridicule them, while the audience will boo. Conversely, if the player turns up the audio for the announcer or the audience, the announcer will praise the player and compliment his own voice, while the audience cheer.
Shame on you! Don't do this to me! This is my only job! No! What? You're going the wrong way! Congratulations! You've turned up the awesome! I'm loving the sound of my own voice. Keep going! Higher!
In Sonic Dash, if you play as Sir Lamorak, you can hear all the Extreme Gear sound effects even though they don't use an Extreme Gear. This makes them the only character that does not use an Extreme Gear, but still uses the Extreme Gear rolling sound effects in Sonic Dash. In Sonic Lost World, there are quite a few issues with Super Sonic. As you all may know, you could sometimes see Sonic having two mouths in his super form, but there's another era in which Super Sonic's wall jumping animation has him turning into a yellow colored normal Sonic rather than Super Sonic. In the first gameplay footage for the 3DS version of Sonic Lost World, the Invincibility and Speed Shoes theme was an instrumental version of Sonic Heroes, but in the final game, the Speed Shoes music was replaced with an instrumental version of Reach for the Stars. The Wii U version still retains Sonic Hero's instrumental theme though. After blasting through these walls in Gamma's Red Mountain, if you turn around before taking a spring, you'll find a set of electric chairs. Since Red Mountain takes place on Angel Island, this means that death by electric chair was a viable option for the residents who broke some sort of law on Angel Island. Another cheese related fact in this video is that in Sonic Jump Fever, cheese was seen in the official announcement trailer as one of the Chow, but is not available in game. Sonic Boom Shattered Crystal openly contradicts Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric and how Sonic and the rest of the game meet Lyric. In Shattered Crystal, Amy meets Lyric and then Lyric kidnaps her, whereas in Rise of Lyric, Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy all meet Lyric at the same time and awaken him from his 1,000-year slumber. In the Japanese dub of Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric, Shadow's voice is robotic sounding because in the Japanese version of the game, Shadow's being mind controlled by Lyric, something planned for the English version of the game but scrapped for unknown reasons.
Saving the world? You? Don't make me laugh. You're weak.
おじけづいたクズ不愉快なやつ消え去れ
We do see this happen though in Sonic Boom Shattered Crystal where Shadow is being mind controlled. Sonic Dash 2, Sonic Boom, has a high score system which features different characters who all got different scores. For example, Cubot's high score is 5,000 points, Styx's high score is 30,000 points, and Sonic's high score is 1,000,000 points. Well, out of the 7 Eggman robots that appear in this list, the Cow is the only one that appears in one Sonic game, being this game of course. In Sonic Runners, while Omega's artwork correctly places the Omega symbol on his front left shoulder, the symbol is positioned on the front right shoulder in his gameplay model. Mario and Sonic at the Rio 2016 Olympic Games marks the first time in the series for a version of the game to be released in the year of the Olympics rather than releasing before it, releasing in June of 2016. In Sonic Boom Fire and Ice, when the player first encounters Defect, Amy breaks the fourth wall by alluding to Sonic Boom's merchandise. She also winks at the player while doing so.
Yeah, he'd make a great action figure if our adventures were ever merchandised.
Oh.
Sonic Runners Adventure is the only 3D styled game on mobile phones to not feature Amy as a playable character in any capacity. In the PC version of Sonic Mania, the exit menu option depicts an animation of Sonic jumping, which resembles the game over event in Sonic CD if the player idles for 3 minutes. It is also the only menu option that doesn't loop since Sonic never comes back on screen. Trust me, I waited. In the Sonic Forces mobile game, Sonic Forces Speed Battle, if you race against or as Big, you will always see Froggy jumping around at the end of the race. The song for Aquatic Mine, Dive Into the Mellow, mentions Knuckles' name 5 times throughout the song, making it the Knuckles song that mentions his name the most. His name is said in the intro, the verse that's repeated twice, and the refrain that's repeated twice as well. Also, as I'm doing research for this topic, I now realize that Knuckles introduces himself at the beginning of every song for his levels, and that's pretty funny if you ask me.
This is Knuckles, and I'm back. You know me, the fighting freak Knuckles, and where everybody flow with me. And this is your boy Knuckles, and this is Knuckles, and you have reached the death chamber. It's your main man Knuckles, and we're Media Herd.
In Sonic Racing for Apple Arcade, you can play as Jet the Hawk as well as Classic Sonic. This makes them the only 2 characters in Sonic Racing who are not also in Team Sonic Racing. Team Sonic Racing's opening does not play on the Nintendo Switch version of the game due to the opening taking up too much cartridge space. Just also another little bonus fact is that while idle, none of the characters ever blink, just like how Sonic is in Sonic Forces. Have you ever just wanted to defy the laws of physics in Sonic Adventure? Well, now you can! Head into Sonic's Lost World and hit this checkpoint right before the boulder chase section, but make sure not to hit any others. After this, you're going to want to make your way to the room with the gravity-defying panels on the wall and align them so you can run up the wall. Once you're on the wall, pause the game, restart from the last checkpoint, and boom! Gravity-defying Sonic. Unlike Sonic at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020's Nintendo Switch counterpart, which uses Sonic's voice clips from the Sonic Boom series, Sonic's voice clips in this game are instead taken from Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo 3DS and Wii U, which in turn are taken from Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, Sonic Generations, and Mario and Sonic at the London 2012 Olympic Games. The characters in Sonic Speed Simulator have unique jump, homing attack, and spin dash sound effects depending on which era the character is from. The classic characters have the sound effects based on the classic games, including the iconic jump sound. The sound of springs being used is also altered to use the classic sound effect. Adventure-style characters in Shadow and his variations have their sound effects taken from the adventure games. Characters introduced in the modern eras, such as Blaze and Silver, and the modern interpretations of the main cast, have the current sound effects, as does any new character or reskin added who does not fit in with the adventure or classic series. In Sonic Origins, they changed the colors of Eggman's glasses in Sonic 3 and Knuckles. In the original game, they were black like how they were in Sonic 2, but Sonic Origins changed them to blue like how they were in Sonic 1. However, Eggman's glasses are still black in Sonic 2 and Sonic Origins for some reason. In the Sonic DLC for Minecraft Bedrock Edition, Tails' lab includes every variant of Wisp from both versions of Sonic Colors, both versions of Sonic Lost World, and Team Sonic Racing. Sonic Frontiers has the most original lyrical arrangements with a total of 21. It was at 16, making it the second most behind Sonic Adventure 2, but with the game's third update, they added 5 more, bumping up that total to 21. In the murder of Sonic the Hedgehog, Knuckles' hat is a variation of his OVA counterpart's hat seen in Sonic the Hedgehog the movie, albeit with rings instead of star decorations. Speaking of that movie, you should all go check it out. It's free on YouTube, so you have no excuses not to watch it. In fact, I'll link it in the description, so now you have to go check it out. In Sonic Superstars, if you sit idle while Sonic is in his super form, he will mimic his idling pose seen in Sonic 3 and Knuckles. After fighting against Shadow the Hedgehog, the two are seen pantsing when Eggman chimes in, telling Shadow to get out of there before the island explodes. Well, if you pay close attention to this cutscene, it actually takes place in the middle of Green Forest's level layout. More specifically, it takes place after this long rope swinging section. Before moving on though, I want to pause here for a second and talk about this set of cutscenes in particular. So as we all know in the Dark story, Eggman's bombs are set to detonate in about 30 minutes from when they're planted. In the Hero story, we see Sonic running off to rescue Amy and Tails after this cutscene, and Shadow goes to rescue Rouge. Well, if we're watching this from Team Dark's point of view, we see a bomb that's set to detonate in a minute and a half, meaning there's no way Sonic would have had 8 minutes to run through Green Forest. So either Sonic is way faster than we thought, he's an actual speedrunning god, or this timeline just doesn't work. In Sonic X Shadow Generations announcement trailer, Shadow shoots past both Sonics, landing on a section of Green Hill. The pose he strikes here is similar to his Shadow the Hedgehog render, albeit without holding a gun. Big's ice cap is big. Like, really big. I swear, there's like 14 different rooms here, but that's not the point. When Big picks up any of the boulders in this level, they don't actually rotate with him when he turns. Instead, they kind of just stay in their position. Almost like Big has just decided to change how he's holding this 2-ton boulder instead of just moving it along with himself.
It's not just a boulder, it's a rock.
It's also the only version of Ice Cap that you can't select in the subgame menu, even if the character runs through it normally. The Sonic 3 promo cartridge marks the only time Shadow has appeared on the Sega Genesis, since he was not introduced into the series until 2 console generations later on the Sega Dreamcast. Sonic Rumble was initially titled Sonic Toys Party, and had a similar logo to that of the Toy Story series of movies. In Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, the only characters that are a part of the main cast that share stats with each other are Shadow and, surprisingly, Blaze. While the DLC characters Rusty Rose and Nine share stats with their counterparts, Dread doesn't share his stats with Knuckles. Instead, Dread's stats are identical to Zavok's. Have you ever heard of White Jungle's insane ring count? Well, if not, here's what's going on. As discussed previously, each level in this game has a ring count that awards the player with an instant A rank if you're able to collect them all. Well, White Jungle's ring count is extremely high, requiring over 450 rings to complete, with only around 250 able to be collected.
Hey pal, you just blowing from Stupid Town?
This is because there are large trails of rings scattered throughout the level that aren't able to be collected without modifying your game in some way. Sonic 1 has been re-released 34 times, 4 of those on the Genesis or Mega Drive itself. If you count Sonic Compilation and Sonic Classic separately, that's 35 times, and if you split up Sonic Origins and Origins Plus, 36 times. Please stop re-releasing Sonic 1. While running through Tails' Skydeck, if you happen to jump up and grab one of these rotating hooks, he'll be holding onto it in his idle animation. He's just kind of hang in there. Sonic Eraser has no official box art since it was only ever released as a download-only game in the 90s. If you look up Sonic Eraser's box art on Google, all you'll get are fan-made box arts, which is why they look like that. Waku Waku Sonic Patrol Car actually got its own 3-part comic series, releasing as off-panel sections in Archie Comics 288, 289, and 290, titled The Adventures of Officer Sonic. The Western box art of Sonic 2 8-Bit features these bird-like badniks that do not appear in the game at all. Also, it appears that Sonic and Tails are running through Emerald Hill Zone, even though it does not exist in this version of the game. Looking at the box art again, we can see that Sonic 2's international box art shows that Dr. Robotnik has a mustache as well as a beard? This beard does not appear in game whatsoever. In fact, I don't think Robotnik has ever had anything remotely close to a beard besides his iconic mustache, so I don't know why he would have been drawn with one here. Sega Sonic Cosmo Fighter is the first Sonic game to feature voice acting, with both Japanese and English-speaking voice actors for Sonic and Dr. Robotnik. While we know who the voice actors for the Japanese version of the game are, the English voice actors go uncredited. I just gotta say though that the English voice acting in this game is pretty good. Probably better than any other Sonic game we've had to date.
Hi, my name is Sonic. Dr. Robotnik is trying to capture our friends.
There you are, Sonic. If you want to rescue your friends, you'll have to down me first. Come on, you guys! Get going!
Have you ever just not wanted to interact much with a level? Instead of actually using your brain, you just want to hold forward and that's about it? Well, thankfully, go play Sonic Forces. Thankfully, Cosmic Wall has you covered. Towards the beginning of the level, you're able to clip out of bounds and just slowly float all the way to the end. You'll need to maneuver around some death planes at the beginning and it's really hard to pull off, but once you do it, it's just a straight shot to the goal. Also, just a little bonus fact, out of all the levels in Sonic Adventure 2, Cosmic Wall allows the player to get the most points out of any other levels in this game. You're able to get well over 100,000 points on the hard mode if you're skilled enough. Even though Sonic fans joke about Sonic Pocket Adventure getting a 10 out of 10 from IGN, Sega Sonic the Hedgehog was the first Sonic game to receive a perfect score, receiving a 10 out of 10 from Electronic Gaming Monthly. Sonic CD switches up the zone and act naming formula of the previous Sonic games. Instead of calling each zone, zone, they are now referred to as rounds by the game's manual. The word zone is replacing the word act like seen in previous games, so instead of saying Palm Tree Panic Zone Act 1, the proper way to pronounce it is Palm Tree Panic Round Zone 1. Sonic Chaos features a speedometer at the end of every act, after you pass the signpost to see how fast you were going. Usually you'll end up with a number above 500 kilometers per hour, which means that Sonic must be blazing through these levels. Well, that number is actually wrong. Based on how tall Classic Sonic is, and his fastest means of travel being a fully charged spin dash, the fastest Sonic can go is a little shy of 35 kilometers per hour. In South Korea, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine was published by Samsung under the name Donggu Ri Ti Chi under the name Donggu Rai Ti Chi Jack Jeon. However, for unknown reasons, a number of early cartridges were in fact copies of the Japanese release of Puyo Puyo with the Donggu Rai label. First off, I just gotta say, Sonic Spinball's Japanese box art looks so cool and I think we moved on way too quickly from it. Anyways, getting back on topic, according to the game's composer, Howard Drawson, Toxic Cave's theme was completed within the first day of his employment despite lacking any prior knowledge on how to use the Genesis sound chip. In fact, according to himself, he lied about even knowing how to use the Genesis sound chip in order to get the job. Sonic 3's Invincibility music can be heard in a commercial for Progressive Insurance, where Sonic is frantically running around the store looking for the best insurance premium.
What's he looking for?
Every vehicle's name in Sonic Drift relates to the wind in some fashion. Sonic's vehicle Cyclone is a type of tropical storm. Tails' MTP-01 Wheelwind literally has the word wind in its name. Eggman's vehicle, the Egg Typhoon, has the word typhoon in it, which is a much more powerful cyclone. And Amy's vehicle is named Breeze, a gentle kind of wind. Of course, Eggman needed to overcompensate and name his vehicle something more powerful than Sonic's. Due to Sonic the Hedgehog's game world being for children ages 4 through 7, most, if not all of you watching this video are too old to play this game, including myself. Tales of the Music Maker was the first time Tails starred in his own game, but only if you lived in North America. The game was released there in October 1994, but didn't come out in Japan and Europe until December 1995. By that point, Tales of Sky Patrol had already been released in Japan in April of 1995, and Tails Adventure came out worldwide in late 1995. So outside of North America, Tails' actual first solo game would have been Tales of Sky Patrol, and not Tales in the Music Maker. Out of every boss that Dr. Robotnik manually pilots in Sonic and Knuckles, the only one without egg in its name is the final weapon. He pilots the Egg Scrambler in Mushroom Hill, the Egg Hanger in Flying Battery, the Egg Golem in Sandopolis, the Egg Inferno in Lava Reef, and the giant Eggman Robo in the Death Egg. Sega Sonic Cotton Candy Scramble once existed, but it seems to have been scrubbed off the face of the earth since there's no documentation of it existing after 1994. Now, you might be thinking this fact could be useful. However, I would argue the opposite because no one's going to believe you that this thing is real. For all you know, I could be making it all up. And since there's no video proof of it in action, no one knows what it could do. Well, except dispense cotton candy, of course, because it's called Cotton Candy Scramble. Wacky World's Creativity Studio marks the first time Sega uses ESRB's label on the cover art for its North American release instead of Sega's Video Game Rating Council. Sonic Triple Trouble features the only time where beating a level doesn't show you any kind of end of the level stats, like how fast you beat the level, bonus points, you get the idea. After beating Sunset Park Zone Act 2, you transition right into Act 3, which is pretty cool to see play out in game. You then go fight the boss of the zone. Wait, his name is what? Okay, so I looked it up. And I kid you not, his name is Marsupopulous Go. What kind of name is that for a boss? Due to Sonic Drift 2's space limitations on its character names, Knuckles is spelled Knuckles, removing the second K, and Metal Sonic is just shortened to M Sonic. For some reason, every enemy in Knuckles' Chaotix has a name except for two. They're simply referred to as Marina Madness Badnik 1 and Marina Madness Badnik 2. There are actually 4 levels called Rail Canyon in the series. Everyone probably knows of the one in Sonic Heroes or the 2 acts in Shadow Generations, but Tales of Sky Patrol's very first level is called Rail Canyon as well. This makes it the first time ever that the name Rail Canyon was used in a Sonic game. One of the items you can collect in Tails' Adventure is the radio. Well, in game, it's misspelled as Rado, placing the I before the D instead of after it. Although they're identical, Sonic Labyrinth's North American and Japanese box art place the game's logo on different parts of the box art. The Japanese version places it in the middle of the screen, while the North American version places it over Dr. Robotnik's face. Then there's the European version of the game, which is just completely different from the other two. In Sonic the Fighters, the characters' select icons of Sonic, Knuckles, Amy, and Fang are all taken from their Sonic Drift 2 artwork. While Tails' pose is similar, he's smiling with his mouth open in the Sonic Drift 2 artwork, while his mouth is closed in Sonic the Fighters. Out of all the playable characters in Sonic's schoolhouse, the monkey's the only one who wears a hat. On top of that, when selected, several of them contort their faces' extremities in ways that are physically impossible for their animal to normally do. The cow bends their antlers, the hippo expands their nostrils, the monkey flattens their face, and the pig shrinks their eyes and also does whatever the heck this is. In the PC program Sonic the Hedgehog the Screensaver, every screensaver depicts Sonic in his usual shoes except for 2. The first is this artwork which shows Sonic playing soccer with what I assume are cleats on the bottom of his shoes. They also feature this weird lip thing over his shoe strap, which, whatever. The other sees Sonic climbing a cliff while holding on to Tails' wrists. Sonic's shoes again have that lip thing, but this time they are outlined with white. The biggest thing though is that Sonic's shoes are sporting spikes, making it easier to climb up the cliffside. So this is going to be the second time we talk about Knuckles' socks in a useless fact video, but in Sonic 3D Blast, Knuckles' socks are blue. Unlike Sonic 3 though, there's no reason they need to be blue. So why are they blue?
Think fast, Chuckle Nuts!
On the signpost at the end of a level in Sonic Blast, there's a chance for Super Sonic to appear on the signpost. This marks Super Sonic's only appearance in an 8-bit Sonic game. Sonic Jam's box art is weird. Firstly, the Sonic in the title of Sonic Jam is ripped straight from Sonic 3D Blast box art for the North American and European versions of Sonic Jam. Second, the European version of the game flips Knuckles and Tails' positions from where they are in the North American and Japanese versions of the box art. And third, the North American version of the box art puts a trademark logo after both words of the title, rather than just after the jam like the other 2 versions do. Sonic R's soundtrack features Sonic sporting his modern appearance rather than his classic appearance. Since this soundtrack was released in January of 1998, this is, if not the earliest appearance of the modern Sonic art style the series would adapt starting in Sonic Adventure, which wouldn't release until December 1998. Even though Sonic Jam for the Gamecom reuses sprites straight from Sonic 3, it actually implements some sprites that went unused in Sonic 3. If you stand still for a while, Sonic will do this idle pose that makes it look like he's falling asleep while standing up. Here's what they look like with Sonic 3's sprites. Even though no one likes Sonic Jam for the Gamecom, it's pretty cool they feature this unused animation in the game. The browser game Sonic Mega Collection Plus features Sonic running through an altered version of Green Hill Zone from Sonic 1. While all of the level, objects, and enemy sprites are taken from Sonic 1, Sonic's sprite is actually taken from Sonic 2. Notice the little shine on his head while he's standing still? That's a dead giveaway. Although Sonic's Emerald Coast features shallow water, it's still deep enough where if the player gets to a certain spot, their head can be fully submerged underwater and they will drown. What's interesting is that if you choose to play as Metal Sonic in the DX port, he'll also drown despite being a robot. I understand that they mainly just copied Sonic's data and slapped a new model onto it, but it's weird that this is something that they left in. It's even weirder when you consider in later games like Sonic 4 Episode Metal, where Metal Sonic's moveset is just a copy of Sonic's, he can't drown in that game. But then again, the DX port was a pretty sloppy job, so it only makes sense that this was left in the game. So this next fact comes from my friend Xpool, who sent me this audio message on Discord after watching my previous Useless Facts video, so take it away, Xpool.
Gonna say this while I'm cleaning my bathroom. So in Sonic Adventure 1, you can technically also do this in Sonic Adventure 2, but the thing about the pause menu is honestly more useless in this. But on the original Dreamcast hardware, and only the original Dreamcast hardware, if you hold every face button and the start button at the same time, the game closes. It goes back to the start menu. And if you close it if you do that input while on the start menu, it goes back to the Dreamcast menu. Bet you didn't know that one.
Out of the original 7 animals that can pop up out of Badniks, Rocky is the only animal from Sonic 1 who doesn't also appear in Sonic Pocket Adventure. Oh, and here's a little bonus fact for you. You know in the classic Sonic games, you'll break a Badnik and the animal will pop out, then fall to the ground and run off screen? Well, in Pocket Adventure, they just pop up out of the Badnik, then disappear before hitting the ground. Super weird, but it probably saves memory or something like that. In Prison Lane, if you head past the first checkpoint, you can see that Gunn finally caught up to Big the Cat and threw him in jail for his war crimes. If you're curious which ones he committed, here they are. Sonic Shuffle is the only Sonic game released for the Dreamcast that did not have any kind of representing storyline in Sonic X, like what we see with Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2. The title screen for Shadow Shoot features a picture of Shadow that is just a flipped version of his artwork on the box art for Sonic Adventure 2. The back of Sonic Adventure 2 Dreamcast box art uses an inverted version of the background seen on the front as its background image, adding to the game's whole duality ideology that it was striving for. Every single re-release of Sonic Advance has kept its name consistent except for one, being the version that was ported to Nokia's N-Gage system. When it was ported to the N-Gage, the game's title was changed to be Sonic N. Aside from that, and the removal of the Tiny Chow Garden, everything's the same. Sonic Mega Collection is the first Sonic game to be given Europe's PEGI 12+ rating, even though every game in this compilation has a rating of PEGI 7+ or lower. Just to explain what PEGI 12+ means, it's a video game that shows violence of a slightly more graphic nature towards fantasy characters, or non-realistic violence towards human-like characters would fall into this age category. Sexual innuendo or sexual posturing can be present, while any bad language in this category must be mild. Other Sonic games that fall into this category are Shadow the Hedgehog, Sonic 06, Sonic Rush Adventure, and Sonic and the Black Knight. Okay, I can understand Shadow 5 and Sonic 06 and Sonic and the Black Knight being here because Sonic literally kills a guy in that game, but what does Sonic Rush Adventure have that's graphic or sexual? Oh wait, I remember now, but I'll save it for Sonic Rush Adventure's useless fact, so stay tuned for that. Sonic Advance 2 is the only one of the Sonic Advance games to not feature an underwater level, since Sonic Advance 1 has Ice Mountain Zone and Sonic Advance 3 has Twinkle Snow. Sonic Pinball Party features Sonic wearing soap shoes at the end of the game, even though the intro of the game shows Sonic wearing his normal shoes. The reason he's wearing soap shoes here is because the artwork is based off some of his artwork from Sonic Adventure 2. You know the red guy on the title screen of Sonic Battle? What's its name? Seriously, what is its name? It doesn't have a name. It looks to be alive since it pulses and has eyes, but it never appears in the game anywhere. According to Sonic Heroes Manual, Eggman has an IQ of 300, is a romanticist, and a proud feminist. Don't know why we need to know some of those things about Eggman, but a little world building never hurt anybody. Sonic Advance 3 would go on to be featured in Sonic Prime Season 3 Episode 3, No Escape. Sonic runs through Sunset Hill, ending with meeting up with Tails and fighting against the Egg Ball number 2. The game Sonic X marks the only time that Chris Thorndike has a speaking role in a Sonic game. While he is in Sonic Adventure DX Director's Cut, that's really only as a signpost in mission mode. Sonic Gems Collection keeps Sonic the Fighter's original title across all regions. Even though Sonic the Fighters was called Sonic Championship in the US and Europe, the collection uses its original name in every version of the game. Since the House of the Dead series is banned in Germany for being too graphic, Sega Superstars Tennis refers to the game series as Kyrian's Mansion, which would go on to be used in every subsequent Sega Superstars title developed by Sumo Digital. On the outer shell casing of the Sonic Adventure LCD game, the picture of Sonic is edited to have tan sclera, instead of being white like how it is in the original drawing. In Sonic Rush, Blaze's voice actress Bella Hudson is misspelled as Bera Hudson during the game's credits. In Shadow the Hedgehog, it's actually possible to activate Shadow's Chaos powers before actually collecting the first Chaos Emerald in Westopolis. Just run around and destroy almost every environmental object and down every gun soldier that you can, and you'll have just enough Dark Chaos energy to activate Chaos Blast.
Chaos Blast!
In the cutscene where Jet opens the door to Babylon Garden Center in Sonic Riders, when it shows us Jet's face up close, the control box is in his hand. When the door opens, however, the control box disappears, only reappearing when the camera is close up to the Babylon rows. Sorry, I'm just waiting for the useless fact to load. Alright, there we go. If you remove Sonic 06 game disc while the game is still playing on the PS3 version, it will continue playing as if the disc was still inside. However, the music will stop playing. Sonic Rivals box art features Sonic's right hand pushing back Silver. When this render of Sonic is used in-game, however, his right hand is changed to be clenched into a fist. Examining the Photoshop file for Sonic the Hedgehog Genesis cover reveals that the logo contains a 3 symbol hidden off to the right side, which bears some stylistic similarities to the one used in the North American logo of Sonic the Hedgehog 3. In Sonic and the Secret Rings, a Razor Jin calls Sonic a rat, before Sonic stands his ground by demanding to be called a hedgehog. This is a case of a slight loss in translation due to Japanese pun play, as the word hedgehog in Japanese is harinezumi, which contains the word nezumi in it, which means rat or mouse. This wordplay was not localized in Western releases, instead opting for a direct translation. So this whole time, I thought Razor Jin was just calling Sonic a rat in the same way you'd call someone a rat, but no, he was doing so in some clever wordplay I just never understood because I don't speak Japanese. Hey, you made it! Okay, now I can share why Sonic Rush Adventure originally got a higher age rating in Europe. In the original release of the game, Marine accidentally said a swear word in Coral Cave, but it's only a swear word in the United Kingdom. This is why in European countries it received a higher age rating. Sonic Team went back and removed this dialogue, lowering the game's age rating to PEGI 3 and up. In Mario & Sonic the Olympic Games, during the track and field events, Big can be seen in the entrance to the stadium. The entrance is in between these green and orange inflatables, so it can be hard to see Big sometimes, especially in the track events. The best place to see him is during the awards ceremony where he just stands behind the characters, staring ominously.
Foggy?
Sonic at the Olympic Games breaks the rules of the official Olympic Games. During the discus throw, the throwers must stand in a circle that is 2.5 meters in diameter and are not allowed to touch the top of the rim of the throwing circle. Not only is the circle too small since it's a little over a meter in diameter, Sonic also steps on top of the rim while he's spinning, which should be an immediate disqualification. So whenever Gamma goes over water, he transforms into this hover mode, presumably so he doesn't touch the water and damage his circuits or something like that. However, it's extremely easy to not only touch the water, but fall through it while running through his version of Emerald Coast. Also, this is the only Gamma level to not feature any checkpoints. Even Final Egg has a checkpoint, though it's kinda pointless. In Sonic Riders Zero Gravity, Meteor Tech is the company established by Dr. Eggman alongside being a course that you'll race through throughout the story. However, when any of the characters mention it by name during a cutscene, they call it Meteotech, foregoing the R in its name.
The Crimson Tower. It's Meteotech's signal tower. In other words, you're looking at Meteotech's brain. Performing Meteotech in the first place.
The Eggman Land project again, huh?
I know the Smash Bros. Series isn't a Sonic game, but each one brings an interesting useless Sonic related fact, so I want to talk about them in this video, starting with Brawl. Anyway, Super Smash Bros. Brawl features 2 stickers that feature Sonic's appearance on Sonic 1 for the Genesis, referring to them as Classic Sonic. This would be the first time that term would be used for Sonic's classic incarnation, since Sonic Generations came out 3 years after Brawl. Sonic the Hedgehog released for the Dig's first level is called Green Hill Zone. Despite being called this, the level actually uses sprites from Sonic 2's Emerald Hill Zone instead of Sonic 1's Green Hill Zone. The game is literally just a hodgepodge of Sonic games. Seriously, Sonic on the title screen is ripped from Sonic 1, and there's Green Hill Zone just being Emerald Hill Zone. Sonic himself uses sprite from Sonic 3, and the game's logo is literally just Sonic 06's logo. Was it really that hard to stay consistent, guys? Throughout Sonic Chronicles, more and more characters are added to your party as you move the story along. However, the only 2 characters that can never be in your party at the same time are Eggman and Shade. This is because Eggman only joins your party for a brief time before leaving, and you can only have Shade in your party further in the story after Eggman has already left. If you head to Spagonia during night in Sonic Unleashed and head to this building, you can hear an NPC whistling the world map theme of Sonic Unleashed. Wait, that was the wrong building. 1 second.
A few moments later.
Okay, wait, I found it. Here's the right building. Let's take a listen. While the Wii and PS2 versions of Sonic Unleashed are practically identical, one of the biggest differences between the two are that in the Wii version, Sonic's quills bounce while he's running, while they are stagnant in the PS2 version. Despite being very prominent to the story of Sonic Unleashed, the Java version of Sonic Unleashed does not feature Dark Gaia at all, only mentioning Gaia's name in the pre-level synopsis. In fact, the game only refers to Dark Gaia as just Gaia, dropping the Dark prefix entirely. In Sonic and the Black Knight, while running through Knight's Passage, Sonic says,
"Who was it who kept treating me like a rat again?"
in reference to Eraser Jin constantly calling him a rat in Sonic and the Secret Rings. During the opening cutscenes of Mario and Sonic the Olympic Winter Games, you can see that Metal Sonic's hands are silver instead of their usual yellow. Later in that same opening cutscene though, his hands go back to being yellow. I just think they'd use the same model when making this cutscene. But apparently not, or like they fixed it halfway through but didn't go back and fix it. I don't know, man. I don't make cutscenes for video games. The app icon for Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games shows Sonic riding a snowboard with the lens flare in the upper left-hand corner. Despite this, the lighting on Sonic's model makes it look like the light is hitting him from the upper right side, due to the right side of his face being darker. Shadow's nose turns yellow during his All-Star and Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing. While playing as Shadow, if you manage to get Shadow's All-Star and use it, he will transform into Super Shadow, turning his fur into a golden ivory color and allowing you to use Chaos Spear on your enemies. Well, if you pay close attention to his transformation animation, you will see that Shadow's nose also turns gold for some reason. In the Java version of Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, if you play as Tails, you can see that his acceleration is the worst in the entire game. This completely goes against Tails' racing appearances since he's usually an acceleration character, or at the very least he has a very good acceleration stat. Even in the HD and SD versions of this game, Tails has a pretty good acceleration stat. A Sonic freehand-like design was actually introduced into the series over a decade before this game came out. In the Sonic OVA, there's a scene where Hyper Metal Sonic believes he has killed Sonic. The Hyper Metal's heads-up display then blinks a Sonic freehand-like Metal Sonic celebrating, while Tails panics and Sonic dies. Sonic Classic Collection features the ability to play the combined version of Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles. Instead of calling it Sonic 3 and Knuckles though, the game instead calls it Knuckles and Sonic the Hedgehog 3, similar to the titles of Knuckles and Sonic the Hedgehog 2. However, the title screen of the game still calls it by its original name. The mobile port of Sonic 4 Episode 1 has a different idle animation for Sonic compared to the other versions of the game. Usually Sonic taps his foot in annoyance at the player for not getting a move on, but the mobile port of the game instead features Sonic pulling out a phone and talking on it. Probably ordering a pizza or something. It's a special way to thank Sonic Freerider's producer Kenjiro Morimoto. Sega of Japan created a special Xbox 360 console just for him. This console features a Kinect built into the side of it, alongside having Sonic Freerider's color scheme and some of the game's assets on it as well. This is by far the coolest thing I've learned for a video, and it's a shame the console was never officially released. In Sonic Colors, one of the announcements you can hear Eggman say over the PA system is,
"With the owner of the yellow car, license plate 1NOM155, main gate. Your vehicle is in the path of an asteroid, and it's about to get smashed. Oh, never mind.
This is a reference to Axel from Crazy Taxi, as his license plate is 1NOM155. The Sonic Colors DX box art is slightly different from the Sonic Colors Wii version. Due to the two games using different wisps in its gameplay, the DS version swapped out the wisps that aren't in this game for the ones that are in the game. To be specific, the Spike Wisp is replaced with the Burst Wisp, the Cube Wisp is replaced with the Void Wisp, and the Frenzy and Hover Wisps are removed from the DS box art since they aren't in the game. Also, I don't know if it's like this for your guys' version of the box art, but my copy of Sonic Colors DS doesn't have the 6 color trails above the N in Sonic like the image on screen shows. Mine only has 4 colors. I don't know why it's like that, but if yours is like that too, then let me know in the comments below. Even if you downloaded the North American version of Sonic Generations, the game is still based on the PAL version of the game. The easiest way to tell this is by going into the collection room and listening to any of the music from Sonic Colors. As you can see, Colors is spelled with a U like it does in the PAL regions, whereas in America it should be spelled without one. This is actually fixed in Sonic X Generations version of the game, removing the U from North American versions. While Sonic Generations console port represents Sonic Heroes in the second era of Sonic and Seaside Hill, the 3DS version has a stage from it as part of the third era in the boss fight against the Egg Emperor. If you've been living under a rock and somehow don't know what the Egg Emperor is, the Egg Emperor is the final boss of each character's respective stories in Sonic Heroes. The announcer for Mario and Sonic at the London 2012 Olympic Games is Rumblebee.
Mario and Sonic at the London 2012 Olympic Games!
If that name sounds familiar, that's because he's the vocalist behind the songs of Sonic Riders, and Sonic Riders Zero Gravity. The exit menu option in Sonic 4 Episode 2 features Sonic running past a bunch of copies of Sonic 4 Episode 1. I don't know why it's Episode 1 and not Episode 2, but I mean, sure man, whatever. In Sonic 4 Episode Metal, all the Metal Sonic sound effects are taken straight from his sound effects in Sonic Adventure DX Director's Cut. One of the zones in Sonic Jump uses the same name of a certain app that tried to dethrone Twitter, that being Blue Sky Zone. Out of all the Sonic games released for the Wii U, Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed was the only one to release concurrently with modern generation consoles, releasing just a couple of days apart from each other. This is because the other Wii U games were console exclusives, or the game wasn't released on other consoles for another couple of years like Sonic Lost World. In Sonic Dash, every location that is not part of an event takes place at noon except for Mushroom Hill Zone, which takes place during sunset. The game over screen in Sonic Lost World is a direct callback to the continue screen from Sonic 1 for the Genesis. The 3DS version of Sonic Lost World is missing quite a few cutscenes that appear in the Wii U version of the game. To be specific, the cutscenes that introduce us to Zamom, Master Zik, Xena, and Zor, the cutscene where Cubot's head has been attached to Orbot, and the final cutscene with Zaz, Zamom, and Master Zik. My guess is that they didn't have enough storage space for every cutscene, so they took out the ones that were not necessary to advance the plot. Mario and Sonic the Olympic Winter Games Sochi 2014 is the only Olympic game to not be released alongside a handheld port. The first Olympic and Winter Olympic games had DS ports, the London 2012 and Rio 2016 games had 3DS ports, and the Tokyo 2020 game had a mobile phone port. In Sonic Jump Fever, Tails was the default character while Sonic was an early unlockable in the original release of the game. When Update 1.1.0 rolled out, their positions were swapped to Sonic being the default character while Tails was an unlockable. Amy's toy figurine in Sonic Boom Shatter Crystal reads, "Amy, dear Amy, oh wherefore art thou Amy?" This is a modified quote from Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. The original quote is, "O Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo?" The code name for Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric was Project Apollo. This can be seen in some early concept art for the game. Sonic Dash 2 Sonic Boom is the only mobile Sonic game that was developed in some part by Sumo Digital. Like we discussed earlier, Sumo Digital is responsible for developing Sega Superstars Tennis, alongside Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, and Team Sonic Racing. Shadow's trophy pose in Smash 4 has nearly the same pose as his artwork from Sonic Rivals. Sonic Runners is the only 2D game that Mephiles is a playable character in. While he is playable in other mobile games like Sonic Dash and Sonic Forces Speed Battle, Sonic Runners is the only 2D game he's playable in. Mario and Sonic at the Rio 2016 Olympic Games is technically Sonic's 25th anniversary title. This is because in Japan, the game was released on June 23, 2016, 25 years after Sonic 1 was released on the Genesis. Despite Orbot and Cubot having some major roles in the Sonic Boom TV show, Sonic Boom Fire and Ice is the only time they make an appearance in a Sonic Boom platforming game. In the Sonic level pack from LEGO Dimensions, when Shadow appears in the Dimensional Rift, he is wielding a gun, referencing his standalone game, which featured guns as a main form of attack. Knuckles is then seen grabbing the gun out of Shadow's hand and throwing it away, referencing how the fan reception to said game was poor. Knuckles also takes his glove off in the scene, revealing that he has another glove underneath it. While Sonic Runners was labeled as an endless runner, its sequel Sonic Runners Adventure mixes both infinite with finite levels, making it the only Sonic game to do so. Also, the description for this game is just straight up hilarious. Sonic features, dash through 4 iconic locations with super graphics. Warning, may cause a rush of excitement. Oh my gosh, dude, I can't with this game, it's terrible. At the end of Sonic Mania, during the good ending, we see Little Planet get unchained from Sonic's world and sent back into space where it will return in 11 months, since Little Planet only appears over Never Lake for 1 month out of the year. Well, since we can also see Little Planet return to space during the good ending of Sonic CD, it can be presumed that Sonic CD and Sonic Mania take place a year apart, since they both end with Little Planet going back to space. Sonic Forces Speed Battle references a lot of character dialogue and songs in its achievement names. Here's a quick rundown of the achievement names and where they're from.
You're too slow. Oh yeah! This is happening.
Hey Sonic, long time no see, huh?
You think you can keep up with me?
You've got this, Sonic.
Get a load of this! Get a load of this!
Welcome to the next level!
Do you think you can beat me?
One more last fist bump.
You know what they say, the more the merrier.
I'm the world's ultimate life form.
All systems, full.
I don't recall where "we can do this" or "now we're talking" come from, but if you do, then just let me know in the comments down below. Sonic Forces Avatar Creator allows you to create a Shadow lookalike wearing a maid outfit. Personally, I went with this cool wolf with the Joker outfit from Persona 5 and a top hat, but you do you, I guess. Out of all the playable third-party characters in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Sonic has made the most playable appearances out of any of the other characters, being in Brawl, Smash 4, and Ultimate. Zavok's vehicle in Sonic Racing, the Road Dragoon, is based off his mech from Sonic Lost World, that being the Mech Dragon. Team Sonic Racing features the only appearance of Mother Wisp on a home console. You can see her clear as day during your race through Mother's Canyon. Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020 is the only Sonic game that was released exclusively for the Nintendo Switch, as all other Sonic games were released on all other major consoles. In Sonic at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020, each character icon shows their head and their head alone. That is, except for Eggman and his alternate dimension counterpart, who also show a bit of their upper body. Unlike the original game, Sonic Colors Ultimate only features a single save file. Even though the game has only one save file, you could still listen to the save select screen music in the options satellite. In Sonic Speed Simulator, Grind Shoe Sonic's pose is based on the box art for Sonic Adventure. Sonic Origins did Sonic CD dirty. And by that, I mean they removed Sonic jumping off the screen after you idle for 3 minutes. Okay, well then what did I just show you on screen? You see, while the anniversary edition of Sonic CD removed the jumping off screen after idling for 3 minutes, the classic edition left it in. The only thing is that they also removed Sonic's voice line saying, "I'm out of here." So he just wags his finger and then jumps off screen to go find some chili dogs or something like that. In the Sonic DLC for Minecraft Bedrock Edition, if you head on over to the Labyrinth Zone section of Tails' lab, you can see Bomb from Knuckles' Chaotix just chilling on a wreck for no rhyme or reason. In Sonic Frontiers, the camera shot after nabbing the first Chaos Emerald will be different depending on which version of the game you're playing. On most versions, the camera will move forward throughout the island and eventually make its way to the waterfall. On the other hand, the Switch versions will fade in and out of shots of small sections of Kronos Island. In The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog, the conductor says he's been driving the Mirage Express for 32 years. This This is a reference to the fact that in 2023, the release year of the game, marks 32 years since the release of Sonic 1 for the Genesis. In Frozen Base Zone Act 2 from Sonic Superstars, each character starts the act with a little cutscene of them entering an Eggmobile. Well, this Eggmobile actually changes depending on which character you play, and the Eggmobile also changes depending on which game the character first appeared in. This applies to every character except for Trip, who will instead pilot the Egg Scorcher Mark III from Sonic 3's Angel Island Zone. Knuckles' main render as seen on the cover of Sonic Dream Team is based on his stage clear pose from Sonic 3 and Knuckles. It can be a little hard to see due to the bottom half of his body being hidden behind Sonic Quills, but if we look at the render itself, the reference becomes quite obvious. In Sonic X Shadow Generations, if you talk to Big outside of Kingdom Valley, he says he went to the Space Colony Arc during his adventure to get Froggy back. This calls back to and canonizes his numerous cameo appearances throughout stages and cutscenes in Sonic Adventure 2. If you want to see this for yourself, just mash the A button during certain cutscenes and you'll see Big run past our main cast of characters. When playing the Sonic 3 promo cartridge, if you select Randall, he'll say, "Welcome to the gun show." This refers to Randall being in peak physical condition, and also the fact that he works for the Guardian Units of Nations, or GUN for short. Sonic Rumble marks the first time that the Donpa makes a playable appearance, even though he's been around in the series for over 6 years now. In a free update, Sonic Racing Crossworlds added in the Blue Star as an extreme gear you can use in races. Although it's called the Blue Star, its design is more so based on the Blue Star 2 from Sonic Riders. In the 2-player mode, the arena that you fight in for Eternal Engine is actually the battle arena where you fight Dr. Eggman or Tails, depending on which story you're playing. The music here is even the same as the boss fights music and not Eternal Engine's music. In Sonic 1, Starlight Zone is the last zone you can collect the Chaos Emeralds in. Even if you collect 50 rings in Scrap Brain Zone, the special stage ring will not appear. This isn't due to Sonic Team trying to force you to collect the Chaos Emeralds sooner, but because part of the VRAM normally used by the giant ring is used to animate the smoke in the background. Tails' Speed Highway is the only time we see Tails racing against someone who isn't Sonic. Here we see him racing against Dr. Eggman, who's on a suicide mission to blow up Station Square. Also, if you ever feel like not going to save the people of Station Square, you can fly through this building in the Dreamcast and GameCube versions of the game in order to access Sonic Speed Highway and beat the level that way. Sonic Eraser was originally meant to be included in Sonic Gems collection, as evident by a deleted reference in the game's files. The patrol car from Waku Waku's Sonic Patrol Car looks to be a chibi-ified version of a Toyota Crown patrol car. These vehicles were used around the same time of the game's release, so it makes sense why Sega would base the patrol car design off of them. Sonic 2 8-Bit starts off every level with the zone's name, which act you're going to be diving into, and a small preview of what that level is going to look like. While on the title card for Sky High Zone, we see both Sonic and Tails hang gliding high in the sky. You may have already noticed it, but Tails is actually missing his twin tails in this title card. When Sonic goes to inhale an air bubble in Sonic 2, part of his shoe turns yellow instead of being dark red. It's unclear why his shoe turns yellow, but it is there. If you have any ideas why this would be, then just let me know in the comments down below. If you've ever wanted to play Sega Sonic Cosmo Fighter, then it'll cost you either 100 yen or $2 Australian to play. But if you want to do something for free, you can leave a like and subscribe if you're enjoying the video so far. According to Sega Sonic Popcorn Shop's manual, the machine weighs 280 kilograms or roughly 617 pounds. That means this machine weighs almost as much as your mom! In Sega Sonic the Hedgehog, Eggman has a completely unused sprite set that uses his Sad AM appearance instead of his regular Eggman appearance. Even though Sega Sonic the Hedgehog saw a limited release window in North America, the game still used Eggman's regular sprites instead of changing them. In Sonic CD, if the player runs straight into the first set of spikes in Collision Chaos Round Zone 1 on their final life, the game will add insult to injury, with Metal Sonic breaking through the spikes that killed Sonic and kidnapping Amy throughout the game over sequence. In Sonic Chaos's Turquoise Hill Zone, despite the fact that turquoise is a blue-green color, the color turquoise actually never appears throughout the zone. There are lots of blues and lots of greens, but none actually fall under the color turquoise. The character Has-Been in Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine is renamed in this game. Their real name is Carbuncle and they come from the Puyo Puyo series. Sonic Spinball was actually planned to be ported to the PC like some of the other Sonic Genesis games, but it was ultimately scrapped for unknown reasons. We do actually have some idea what the game's box art would look like, thanks to Sega Forever on Twitter. Even though Knuckles' arms are usually red, in Sonic 3 when you go through these tube looking things in Hydrocity, Knuckles spins around until he's shot out on the other side. Well, when he's looking away from the camera while spinning, you can see his arms turn tan instead of being their usual red. Sonic Drift was the first Sonic game that featured Eggman as a playable character, as up until now, he had just been an antagonist for Sonic to defeat. The title screens for the Japanese and English versions of Sonic the Hedgehog's game world use different colors for the background and its characters, except for Amy, who stays the same. The Japanese version features much brighter colors for both Sonic and Tails, alongside the color of the building in the background changing from a bluish color in the Japanese version to a greenish color in the English version. Looking at the title screens again, Tails and the Music Maker put the trademark logo after the word Tails in the title instead of putting it at the end of the title. If you go back to check on Knuckles in Sky Sanctuary Zone and Sonic and Knuckles, he will signal Sonic to go away and chase after Robotnik. If you load in a Meteor Herd as a character who can grind on rails like Sonic or Shadow, you can actually find an invisible grind rail that, when you hop on it, takes you around the ground of Meteor Herd. It's unclear why it's here, but it gives the name Air Shoes a whole new meaning now. Wacky World's Creativity Studio is the only time that Head Games would develop a game related to Sonic the Hedgehog. Despite the name Robotnik not existing in Japan at the time, Sonic Triple Trouble's Robotnik Winter Zone uses this western name worldwide. In Knuckles' Skydeck, by tilting the ship forward, you can cause objects to fall out of the ship like tables and globes. You may also see these maid cleaning robots that actually appear within the egg carrier. Also, if you pause the game while one is on screen, they'll continue to move even when the game's paused. In Knuckles' Chaotix, if you play as Espio and stand still, his idle animation will have him changing color just like real chameleons do. While this feature of his would not ever be seen again, there is a mod for Sonic Racing Crossroads that implements this, and honestly, it's one of the coolest mods I've ever seen come out of this game. Did you know that Tales of Sky Patrol might have at one point in time been a Disney game? In the April 1995 edition of Sega Video Magazine, prototype footage of Tales of Sky Patrol is shown. Tails appears to be fighting Disney's Pete instead of burying her, as shown on screen. In Tails' Adventure, the Rocket Booster item is misspelled as Rocket Booter, missing an S on the item equip screen. The only time that Sonic Labyrinth was re-released as its own standalone title is when it was re-released for the Nintendo 3DS Virtual Console back in 2015. For another fact about Espio, Sonic the Fighters is the only game to show off his long tongue. More specifically, he uses this as an attack against his enemies. I'm no tongue expert, but I feel like using your tongue is a terrible means of attacking someone. Sonic Schoolhouse's early box art depicts Sonic having blue arms, despite Sonic's arms never being blue up until this point, and it wouldn't be blue for almost another 2 decades. In Sonic the Hedgehog the Screensaver, one of the screensavers depicts Sonic dressed in a Santa outfit. This confirms that Christmas does indeed exist as a holiday in Sonic's universe. On top of that, since Christmas started as a holiday celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ, it also confirms that Jesus was a real person who was born and crucified in Sonic's universe. That's actually crazy that crucifixion is something that canonically happened in Sonic's world. Sonic 3D Blast's European box art features this monstrosity of a Sonic model. Well, this model was actually a real-life clay model created by Me Company. While it does look disturbing, I definitely would like to see this model in person someday. I don't know if it's still around, but I hope it is. If you've ever wanted to play Sonic Blast, but don't want to buy another console just to play Sonic Blast, you can pick up the TV Play System version by Technosource. All you gotta do is plug it into the TV, put in 3 AA batteries, and you're good to go. Sonic Jam features character bios for all the main characters of the Sonic series up until this point. We can see their age, likes, dislikes, and their strong points and weaknesses. Well, if we turn to Knuckles' bio, we can see that his weak point is girls. In Sonic R, you can find a fish-like symbol on top of a building in Resort Island. This is the... oh gosh. Ichthus? This is the Ichthus. Ichthus. This is the Ichthus, also known as the Christian fish. This was just simply added in as an Easter egg by John Burton, who was a programmer who worked on Sonic R as well as being a devout Christian. In the last Useless Facts video, we talked about how Sonic Jam for the Gamecom uses an unused animation from Sonic 3, where we see Sonic fall asleep while waiting for the player to get a move on. Well, there's also another unused animation from Sonic 3 that Sonic Jam uses. It's this animation where Sonic seems to be whistling for Tails, even though Tails doesn't appear alongside Sonic in this game. Jumping forward in time for a second with this browser game, Sonic Boom Lincoln Smash is the only Sonic Boom game where Eggman does not make any sort of appearance. Now, if you've played the Sonic Boom games, you may say this is false because Eggman doesn't show up in Shadow Crystal. However, he makes a brief appearance on a monitor telling Metal Sonic to protect the robot facility and eliminate Sonic and his friends. In the original game, Crazy Gadget featured these boxes with big glowing green X's on them. When the game was ported over to the GameCube, these boxes were changed to red. This is because in between the release of Sonic Adventure 2 for the Dreamcast and Sonic Adventure 2 Battle for the GameCube, Microsoft's Xbox was released, which prominently featured a big green X as its logo. In order to not conflict with their logo, the color of the boxes were changed to red. In Sonic Adventure, out of all 11 action stages, each one is played by exactly 3 characters except for Lost World. Lost World is only played by Sonic and Knuckles. If you're curious at all, here's a list of every level and every character that goes through those levels. In Sonic Pocket Adventure, if you head to the Go to Room option and click on the Trial Room, you can see 2 options for Time Trial or Advanced. You may have already noticed, but Sonic's legs are missing its fur on the Advanced menu sprite. And before you comment, actually hedgehogs have hair, not fur since they're mammals, they actually have both. Their quills are stiff keratin-based hair, while they have fur on their legs and face. While Sonic Shuffle is often disregarded as just a Mario Party clone, the game was actually developed by the same company that created Mario Party, that being Hudson Soft. The Sonic Cafe game Sonic Speed DX features you playing a game of speed as Sonic against either Tails, Amy, Knuckles, Eggman, or Shadow. While Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy's artwork are taken from Sonic Advance, Eggman and Shadow's artwork is taken from Sonic Adventure 2. In Sonic Adventure 2, you can beat every speed stage without picking up any upgrades for Sonic and Shadow. City Escape, Radical Highway, Green Forest, Sky Rail, Final Chase, Sonic sections of Cannon's Core, and Green Hill don't require you to do anything fancy. You're supposed to use the bounce bracelet in Pyramid Cave to bounce higher, but if you just hold the jump button or just jump around obstacles, you'll be good to go. Middle Harbor and White Jungle have long gaps that you're supposed to light speed dash on, but you can just do a well-timed spin dash jump for both of these and take a hidden rocket in Middle Harbor and be just fine. Final Rush is a bit tricky, but by jumping around invisible barriers and clipping back in bounds, as well as just spin dashing into some walls that don't have any collision, will get you to the goal ring in a flash. Now, Crazy Gadget is extremely complicated, but all you need to know is that if you are able to do a really tight spin dash jump and get yourself oriented on the wrong axis, you can make your way through the level, clip out of bounds, and hit the goal ring. In Sonic Advance, the entirety of Knuckles' basic movement sprites and the majority of his sprites in general are edited off of Sonic's. It's pretty easy to tell if you put them next to each other that a lot of Knuckles' sprites are just slightly edited versions of Sonic sprites. Sonic Mega Collection Plus has an early version of the Sonic Heroes opening movie in its extras menu. Johnny Gioeli is heard scat singing to the tune of a song, alongside the version of the intro using unfinished animation, altered textures, and many storyboard sketches. Due to Sonic Advance 2 only having one small body of water in the game, Tails was not programmed to swim. This makes it one of his only 2D appearances where Tails cannot swim. In Sonic Pinball Party, during the tournament bracket, we could see several cameo appearances of Sega characters' names in the bracket, including Choo Choo and Kapu Kapu from Choo Choo Rocket, Linda, Rio, Bingo and Bongo, and Chumba and Wamba from Samba de Amigo, and also Wiseman, Riella, Knights, and Puffy from Nights into Dreams. In Sonic Heroes, Amy says Casino Park reminds her of Casinopolis from Sonic Adventure, despite never running through that level at all in Sonic Adventure. In the opening cutscene of Sonic Advance 3, the developers decided to give Tails a butthole, represented by a single pixel on his butt. While Shadow the Hedgehog is usually credited as the game that replaced the current Sonic voice actors with a 4Kids cast, the Sonic X Leapster game was actually the first game to replace Sonic's voice actor with the 4Kids voice actor Jason Griffith. If you decide to sit in the game's menu in Sonic Gems Collection, the music will just stop playing after a couple minutes. This is because the music wasn't programmed to loop, so it just plays once and is done after that. Whenever Sonic activates his Superstar state in Sega Superstars Tennis, we see him turn into Supersonic using the Chaos Emeralds. Well, if we actually look at which Chaos Emeralds he uses, we can see that he uses 2 purple Chaos Emeralds. If you're curious which Chaos Emerald is missing, it's the dark blue one. The LCD game Shadow Grinder was an LCD game created for McDonald's Happy Meals back in 2003. Well, this specific LCD game released with 2 different variants. One variant has a yellow button, while the other one has a red button. Sonic's gameplay sprites from Sonic Jump are ripped straight from Sonic Advance. When finishing Blaze's story in Sonic Rush, she's shown in the credits with Sonic Advance styled sprites. This marks the last time, and makes Blaze the last character to be depicted in Sonic Advance's art style. Here's one I bet you've never heard before. The gun that Shadow wields on the box art of Shadow the Hedgehog doesn't appear anywhere in game. When you first start Amy's hot shelter, you'll enter a room with a bunch of statues on pedestals, with a Kiki replacing one of the statues. Destroying the Kiki and standing atop the pedestal will have Amy play this balancing animation that isn't seen anywhere else in game. If you feel so inclined to, you can also move the joystick around to try and keep her on the pedestal for as long as possible. In the opening movie of the hero story in Sonic Riders, Sonic is seen taking Storm's board to chase after Jet on his extreme gear. Well, the first race in the Babylon story depicts the events of this cutscene in gameplay, but despite this, Sonic uses his own board with Storm present using his own board.
Agent Shadow, E123 Omega has engaged Mephiles. Head to the Wave Ocean, head to Wave Ocean. Agent Shadow, E123 Omega has engaged Mephiles. Head to Wave Ocean immediately.
Sonic Rivals states that everything Eggman Nega takes a picture of with his special camera is trapped inside of a card. That means that all the cards you collect from Sonic Rivals 1 and 2 must also be trapped inside of a card. This includes item and characters from games like Secret Rings, 06, and the Finn cards from Sonic Adventure. The manual for Sonic 1 in the Game Boy Advance's story section is one for one the exact same as the original Genesis version, except after introducing Dr. Robotnik, they put in parentheses aka Dr. Eggman, since by 2006, Robotnik is now going by Dr. Eggman. In Sonic and the Secret Rings, when you first start the game, you'll be running through the Lost Prologue. If you take a look at what you're running on, you're actually running on the pages of the Arabian Nights story. The words are being erased off the pages, which is exactly what Eraser Jin is doing to the Book of the Arabian Nights, destroying the pages. Sonic Rush Adventure is the only handheld Sonic platforming game to have some sort of 3D hub world in it. For Mario and Sonic the Olympic Games, according to former Sega localization producer Ryoichi Hasegawa, Nintendo insisted on Mario's foot being one step ahead of Sonic's in the box art for this game. Sega promptly complied, fearing the deal between the two companies would fall through otherwise. Sonic at the Olympic Games was released for both mobile phones as well as a browser game on the Play Sega web service. Sonic Rivals 2 features a multiplayer mode where the player can race against other players, and each character gets a set of alternate costumes they can wear. Well, if we take a look at Rouge's stealth outfit, it shares a striking resemblance to her spy jumpsuit from Sonic X. In Sonic Riders Zero Gravity, Amy is a playable character in the Babylon story, but she's also wearing her regular outfit. However, when you play as her during the mission mode, she'll be wearing her rider's outfit. In Smash Bros. Brawl, during Snake's codec call with Sonic, he says,
"Something about that hedgehog rubs me the wrong way."
Well, it just seems that Snake doesn't like Sonic for some reason. It's actually just an inside joke, as Snake's Japanese voice actor, Akiya Otsuka, is the son of then Dr. Eggman voice actor, Chikao Otsuka. Out of all the zones in Sonic the Hedgehog for the Dig, the only zone unique to this game is the Egg Base zone. However, its design is just the Death Egg zone from Sonic 2, so it's really only unique in its name and not in its design. In Sonic Chronicles The Dark Brotherhood, when Big levels up to level 21, he actually loses 43 HP points, going from a max of 600 to 557. Thank you to Modwile for teaching me that during the Sonic Jeopardy game that I did on his channel. You should go check it out. It's really funny, and I had a great time with it.
So, it's an Eggman land.
I like the lore.
If you've played Sonic Unleashed before, you know that the daytime acts usually start with Chip flying around the player and then going off screen. While in some levels, like Dragon Road Act 1, you could see Chip just fly up and then disappear into thin air. The Wii and PS2 versions of Sonic Unleashed feature an extra scene in the Tails in Danger cutscene. In the HD versions, the cutscene starts with a shot above Tails looking down on his back, whereas the Wii and PS2 versions start this cutscene with the door opening, showing us Tails and Dark Guy as minions. In the Java version of Sonic Unleashed, Sonic uses his Werehog transformation sprites whenever he gets an invincibility item. Here's what the two look like side by side. Sonic in the Black and White features fairies that do an assortment of things, from giving you rings to giving you a burst of speed. Well, if you keep track of which color the fairies are as you run through the world of King Arthur, you'll notice they match with the color of the Chaos Emeralds. Also, if you ever decided to take a closer look at the fairies, you'll notice that they're just a bunch of tiny Chow faces. In Mario and Sonic the Olympic Winter Games, the starting area for the Dream Bobsleigh event takes place in the Nocturne area from Sonic Chronicles The Dark Brotherhood. This makes it one of, if not the only time, Sonic Chronicles is referenced in another Sonic game. The character renders used for Sonic the Winter Olympic Games are the same as its Mario and Sonic counterpart, except for Sonic and surprisingly Amy. In Sonic at Sega All-Stars Racing, when Big the Cat activates his All-Star move, Big grabs onto a giant Froggy and plows down the other races. Well, if you notice, Froggy still has his tail, which he only has in Sonic Adventure when he had eaten Chaos's tail. In the Java version of Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, on the character select screen, Sonic's eyes are blue instead of its usual green. The Sonic 20th Anniversary app comes with a demo of Sonic 1, the Sonic the Hedgehog game, and a few other things. While Sonic 4 Episode 1's demo comes with a 1-minute timer, meaning you only get to play a minute of it. Well, theoretically, you could beat Splash Hill Zone Act 1 without the demo, only if you take all the right paths though. Sonic Classic Collection was never released in Japan, only in Western territories like North America, Europe, and Australia. In Sonic 4 Episode 1's Casino Street Zone, a Ferris wheel with the name Sonic the Portable can be seen in the stage's background. Sonic the Portable was the original name of Sonic 4, as the game was originally meant for portable devices like smartphones. Sonic Freeriders is the only Sonic Riders game to not feature any kind of crossover characters, instead just opting to use Sonic characters and not bringing back fan favorites like Knights or Billy Hatcher. Sonic Colors allows you to name your save file whatever you want when you first save the game. The name the save file will start with usually being the name of a previously established Sonic character. However, there is a list of forbidden words that you cannot name your profile, like gay or lesbian. In the DS version of Sonic Colors, Yacker and their almighty powers says 6-7 during one of the game's cutscenes in Sweet Mountain. Okay, here's a real useless fact about Sonic Colors DS. So in Sonic Colors, every one of Sonic's friends you encounter in the mission of Sonic Colors has 4 different mugshots, except for Knuckles, who has 5. For the release of Sonic Generations, Xbox Live released several avatar costumes themed after the game, including one of Classic Amy. Despite this costume existing, Classic Amy makes no appearance in-game, except for an illustration in the gallery, which is just an old sketch of Classic Amy. In Sonic Generations 3DS, you fight against the Egg Emperor as the boss of the 3rd era of Sonic. Due to Neo Metal Sonic pretending to be Eggman at this point in the story in Sonic Heroes, Sonic Generations 3DS makes this the first time you truly face Eggman piloting the Egg Emperor. In Mario and Sonic the London 2012 Olympic Games, towards the beginning of the opening movie, we can see that Mario is on a trampoline while Sonic is gearing up for a sprint. Both characters are performing their trademark skills in an Olympic setting, which is jumping for Mario and running for Sonic. In Final Rush, right after the checkpoint that has you grinding on this set of rails, if you jump down, you can actually find a hidden spring. This spring bounces you off a couple other springs, which leads you to an extra life, which is nice, but it also puts you right over a bottomless pit. Failing to do anything or react in time just sees Sonic falling into the vacuum of space, never to be heard from or seen from again. When you first boot up Sonic 4 Episode Metal, the game begins with an introductory cutscene taking place in Stardust Speedway Round Zone 3. This is the very place where Sonic defeated Metal Sonic and Sonic CD. In the 3DS version of Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, there's an unused file of a portrait of Sackboy from Little Big Planet. This suggests that Sackboy was at one point planned to be playable, but scrapped for unknown reasons. During the Pac-Man event in Sonic Dash, a ghost boss known as Bash was added into the game. The thing is, Bash has made no appearance in any Pac-Man game or any other game before or after Sonic Dash. So is he a Pac-Man character or a Sonic character? He was added for a Pac-Man event, but he only ever appears as a character in a Sonic game. I don't really have a clue, so just let me know in the comments below what you guys think. In the pre-release footage for Sonic Lost World, Desert Ruin Zone 3, the dessert and candy themed level, had the standard name of the world. When the game was released, they added an additional S to better fit the aesthetic of the stage, making it Dessert Ruin Zone 3. The 3DS version of Sonic Lost World would go on to be the last Sonic game developed by Dimps, who have made a majority of the handheld Sonic games up until this point. So if you've never heard of it, Sonic Athletics is a Sonic-themed arcade game you can play using a treadmill. The useless fact about it is the artwork of Sonic seen on the title screen of the game is taken from Sonic's render on the box art of Sonic Generations for 3DS. The Bullet Bill Sledge Race in Mario and Sonic at the Sochi 2014 Olympic Winter Games takes place in Sweet Mountain from Sonic Colors. Since Sonic Colors was originally released for the Wii, this makes it the first time Sweet Mountain appears in high definition. The version 1.6.1 update for Sonic Jump Fever was just an update to remove some of the game's bugs, but the developers decided to have a little fun with it. The changelog for this update reads, Eggman's plan to fill the game with bugs has failed and they have all been safely removed. In Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric, when the gang encounters Metal Sonic, they call him Metal for short. This is the first time in any Sonic game where Metal Sonic is referred to as simply Metal. Just ignore Sonic 4 Episode Metal since nobody actually calls him Metal in that game, it's just the title of the game. This was first done in the Sonic OVA where Robotnik says,
I'm going to use metal to destroy the real Sonic and then...
Sonic Boom Shatter Crystal is the only Sonic Boom platformer that does not allow you to play as Amy Rose. The reason for this happening is that Amy is captured by Lyric throughout the entire story. Vector's voice lines in Sonic Dash 2 Sonic Boom are all taken from Team Sonic Racing. The update that added Vector into the game was released in 2021, almost 2 years after Team Sonic Racing was released. In Smash 4, Duck Hunt's promotional poster features 8-bit versions of Pit, Samus, Mario, and Sonic in his 16-bit Genesis iteration. This makes him the only 16-bit character on the poster, even though Sonic does have official 8-bit sprites with the Master Sister and Game Gear games. In Sonic Runners, when the character Boo was implemented into the game during the Halloween event, it was mistakenly referred to as Boob, resulting in the Sonic Runners team issuing an apology in the form of an in-game notification. In Mario & Sonic at the Rio 2016 Olympic Games, Styx the Badger was given an official theme known simply as Theme of Styx. The song would later be released in the Sonic 25th Cafe Selection album, which is a compilation of songs ranging from Palm Tree Panic and Sonic CD to Styx's theme, albeit a short version of it. In rolling ramparts from Sonic Boom, Fire and Ice, you'll run past these banners with a strange insignia on it. Well, if it looks familiar, it's because it looks very similar to the black arms insignia we see in a lot of Shadow games. In the first cutscene in the LEGO Dimensions Sonic Pack, we can see Eggman juggling the Chaos Emeralds in a very similar way to if you get the bad ending in the first Sonic game. The reference even goes as far as to giving Sonic the cyan-colored Chaos Emerald that was introduced in Sonic 2. Sonic Runners Adventure will be the last Sonic game ported to Java phones, being released for them in 2017. In Sonic Mania, you can enable a cheat that changes every animal to Ricky the Squirrel. I won't go over it here since you can just look up how to do it, but it's fun to free only squirrels and leave every other animal to stay captured and suffer. If you look up the edgiest song ever on YouTube, Infinite's theme from Sonic Forces is the very first result, followed by a bunch of video about Infinite as well. Sonic Forces Speed Battle features the characters Slugger Sonic and All-Star Amy that feature the 2 in baseball attire. Each character also has a number on them referencing the year they were released. In Smash Ultimate, if you play as Sonic and get knocked into or run into water, Sonic will actually take damage, referring to the fact that Sonic cannot swim, even though normal Hedgehogs actually can swim. Sonic Racing for Apple Arcade is the only game in the Sonic Racing series of games, those being Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transform, Team Sonic Racing iOS, and Sonic Racing Crossworlds, that features Green Hill as a track location. The closest we've gotten is East Stadium and Crossworlds, but that's only because it features some floating holograms that resemble Green Hill. Team Sonic Racing's title screen and menus feature renderings of characters and their vehicles, while the characters' renders are just taken straight from the character's select screen and plopped into a vehicle. Mario & Sonic at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020 has the longest time span between an Olympic game releasing and the actual Olympics taking place. Mario & Sonic at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020 released November 1st, 2019, while the actual Tokyo 2020 Olympics took place July 23rd, 2021. That's a 630-day difference. Sonic at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020 is the only game to feature the Guardian, a robot designed by Eggman that he mass-produced in order to be on par with Sonic. Sonic Colors Ultimate has a couple of achievements that reference the names of popular songs. These are the achievements Eye of the Hedgehog, referencing the song Eye of the Tiger by Survivor, and the achievement I Foiled the Plot and I Liked It, referencing the Katy Perry song I Kissed a Girl. In Sonic Speed Simulator, you can unlock a world called Autumn Forest Zone that originates from IDW's Sonic the Hedgehog 30th Anniversary Special. This marks the first time in series history where a location introduced in a Sonic comic book is playable in a game. In Sonic Origins Plus, if you make your way over to Sonic 2's West Side Island, Knuckles can strike a pose that is based on his artwork from Sonic Advance 2. In the Sonic Minecraft DLC pack, one of the Chow you can find running around in the Chow Garden is the Neutral Fly Chow, commonly known as the Knights Chow. This is because Knights is awesome, and I needed to find some way to talk about Knights in this video. If you beat Sonic Frontiers on easy or normal difficulty, you'll skip the final boss fight against the end and head straight to the credits. The song that plays here during the credits is called Vandalized by 1OK Rock. The song that plays is actually the clean version of the song, whereas the explicit version is, well, explicit. I can't play the song due to copyright, but here are the lyric changes. In The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog, Amy's birthday cake is directly inspired by the design of the present version of Collision Chaos from Sonic CD. In Sonic Superstars, you can find various instances where characters are just hanging out in stages, but only if you're not playing as them. Sonic Dream Team's ending cutscene shows Sonic resting gently against Eggman's hand. In Sonic X Shadow Generations, if you head to the collection room in Shadow Generations and look at Shadow's history, rather confusingly, the game Shadow the Hedgehog is listed as happening prior to Sonic Heroes. This is obviously a mistake, as Shadow the Hedgehog canonically takes place after Heroes due to Shadow being reawakened in Sonic Heroes. When you boot up the Sonic 3 promo cartridge, the song that plays in the background is supposed to be an orchestral version of Live and Learn that we hear in a lot of the trailers for the third Sonic movie. However, since it's compressed down to play on a Sega Genesis, it just comes out all crunchy and honestly doesn't really sound like it unless you're really listening for it. In Sonic Rumble, Sonic, Tails, and Amy have extreme rider skins, which is a reference to early concept art for Sonic Riders. In Sonic Racing Crossroads, all of the AI teams in Race Park are given unique gadget plates that represent that team. In fashion, the AI Team Chaotix uses the gadgets Dash Panel Bounty, 130 Ring Limit, Starting Boost Bounty, Ring Range Up, and Travel Ring Bounty. All these gadgets revolve around making money. Shadow Grinder, not to be confused with the app Grindr, is one of several Shadow LCD games released in McDonald's Happy Meals back in 2003. The game has you playing as Shadow as you grind down the streets of Radical Highway from Sonic Adventure 2. The weird thing is that the grind rails you use in this game don't actually exist in Radical Highway, but they're taken from City Escape. Here's a side-by-side comparison so you can see how similar these two are. The only spots you can grind on in Radical Highway are the barrier rails on the large Golden Gate Bridge inspired structures, or these rails that sit atop some of these barricades. Strangely, you can only grind on the ones that have a single rail across the top of them. The ones with two rails on them act just like the ground, allowing you to walk on top of them. Another weird thing is that every time Shadow lands on a rail in Shadow Grinder, it actually doubles in length, even if the rail is just a single segment. Similar to Shadow Grinder, Shadow Hockey is an LCD game that was distributed by McDonald's as a Happy Meal toy back in 2004. The game sees you playing as Shadow on skates while you try and score goals against Omega. The game art relates to this as it has Shadow on the right of the toy, while Omega is on the left striking a pose that looks similar to someone who'd be trying to stop a goal from being scored in hockey. Apparently there was also a rare silver variant released in Happy Meals. It plays exactly the same as the regular version, but instead of having Shadow or Omega on the toy, it's completely silver and extremely shiny, which means if you got the rare version as a kid, you basically got a Shadow game without Shadow being on the cover art. Shadow Basketball was also an LCD toy that was distributed by McDonald's as a Happy Meal toy back in 2004. I'm starting to sense a pattern here. The game revolves around you playing as Shadow trying to score baskets on Omega. It's essentially just the same as Shadow Hockey, except it has a basketball aesthetic to it instead of a hockey one. In Pakistan, McDonald's ran a Sonic Heroes Happy Meal commercial featuring different Sonic characters doing what they do in the respective LCD games. We see Sonic skateboarding for the game Sonic Skateboard, Tails playing soccer for Tails Soccer, and so on. Well, in the Shadow Basketball segment of the commercial, we see Shadow dribbling a basketball and then dunking it. But if you look closely, Shadow's actually missing the white puff of fur on his chest. It's honestly not that surprising seeing as Rouge looks like my sleep paralysis demon, but I digress. Also, might I add, Shadow never actually dribbles or dunks in the game. All he does is shoots baskets, which this commercial doesn't show off whatsoever. Have you ever wished you could explore more of Sonic's Lost World, but can't due to Sonic's limited mobility? Well, now you can. If you head into Knuckles' Lost World, you can clip through some walls and find Sonic sections still loaded in. You can even find the animal capsule and walk on it to beat the level. Just don't do what I did right away and get soft locked in the small room. Shadow XS is a browser game released on the 4Kids TV website back in 2005 to promote Sonic X. It's a sequel of sorts to Sonic XS, except it replaces Sonic with Shadow and makes everything red to show off how edgy and epic Shadow is. The weird thing is that the instruction screen for the game actually gets several things wrong. Huh? First, it refers to the rings of the game as coins, even though Sonic has never really collected coins in any of his games before. It also claims that Amy and Sonic XS are chasing after you, which never actually happens in the game. Alright, now we're at what a lot of you thought I was going to start with, Shadow the Hedgehog. Shadow the Hedgehog, developed by Sonic Team in 2005, features you playing as Shadow, either killing good guys, killing bad guys, or killing Eggman.
Goodbye, Doctor.
In this game, if you kill a black armed soldier, they fall to the ground and disappear. However, if you do the same to the gun soldiers, they'll just fall to the ground and ask to be spared. We've all seen this happen in games since we wouldn't want Shadow to actually be killing humans in a children's game, but what happens if you try to push the gun soldiers off the edge? Normally none of them stand near pits so you can't easily try this, but if you pick up a heal cannon, knock one down, and revive them, you can push them around wherever you want. If you then try to push them down or homing attack them so they'd fall into the void, they'll just hit an invisible wall and land safely on the ground. It's kinda fitting actually. The developers went out of their way to make sure you don't go out of your way to send these gun soldiers to hell.
Hey, editing Llennox here.
So for that specific clip, I was trying to push the gun soldier into that pit, but there seems to be some sort of invisible lip on it, so you can't just run right off the edge. You can, however, jump into it, just not run into it. I did, however, test this in another level that has a ledge you can walk off of, and you can't push the gun soldiers anywhere near that ledge. I also learned that you can't push them up inclines. Just wanted to share that with you all so I don't get any comments about it. It's just like Sonic Team to make sure all the little details of the games are there, but then the big picture things like, you know, making the game fun to play are just completely avoided. Shadow the Hedgehog Flash, developed by 13.4, is a browser game created to promote the then upcoming Shadow the Hedgehog game. The game features 2 acts. The first sees Shadow running through a 2D recreation of Westopolis, mowing down black arms and gun soldiers alike. The second has Shadow riding on his Dark Rider, making his way down the streets of Westopolis while avoiding obstacles and killing enemies. Well, in this game, Shadow only has one death animation. It sees him clenching his chest like he just got shot, then dramatically falling over, putting his arms into the air before falling to the ground. Well, this plays every time you die, so even if you decide you want to visit Satan, once you hit the bottom of the screen, Shadow gets all dramatic and plays this dying animation. Shadow Shoot is a mobile phone game that Sega offered as a part of the Sega Cafe game service released back in 2006. It features Shadow running and shooting his way down long stretches of levels that each have their own zone name. Some of these include Diamond Highway Zone, Periodot Tunnel Zone, Jadet Forest Zone, and several others. Also, as I'm reading the script, I'm just now realizing that they're all minerals like diamond, peridot, jadeite. I don't remember the rest of them off the top of my screen, but they're probably also all minerals like that, and I think that's cool. Also, before getting to the useless fact of the game, let me just say, the music in this game is so good. I mean, just take a listen to these real quick. Anyways, sorry, getting back on track here, most of Shadow's sprites in this game are taken straight from Sonic Battle. The only ones that don't seem to be from Sonic Battle are when he's holding a gun, which makes sense since he never holds a gun in Sonic Battle, and when he's curled up into a ball. What's weird about the ball animation though is that it never actually rotates 360 degrees. If you watch the red highlights on his quills, or I guess these could also be his shoes, they just move back and forth instead of spinning all the way around. I feel like if they wanted to mimic real rotations, they should have had the red highlights spin all the way around, but that's just what I think. Released in 2024, Sonic X Shadow Generation sees each Hedgehog running throughout Whitespace to save the day. While Sonic runs through his past in Whitespace to stop the Time Eater, Shadow runs through his own past and future to stop Black Doom. In Shadow Generations, Shadow faces off against the Bio Lizard, Metal Overlord, Mephiles, and Devil Doom, who then transforms into Neo Devil Doom. While all of the locations that the boss fights take place in are an alliteration aside from Neo Devil Doom. You fight the Bio Lizard in Cannon's Core, you fight Metal Overlord in the ruins of Final Fortress, you fight Mephiles in Dusty Desert, and then the Devil Doom fight you fight in the Doom Zone or Radical Highway, whatever suits you really. On the title screen for Sonic the Hedgehog, the third E is drawn differently compared to the other two. It's unclear why it's like this, but now I'll never be able to unsee it, and neither will you. The map of South Island, first seen in Sonic 1 8-bit, would go on to be remade in 3D in Sonic Origins. It's used as the background island if you choose to play Sonic 1 in Sonic Origins. In Sonic Eraser, there's a chance for each Sonic to run up and punch each other in order to stun them for a bit. During this running animation, Sonic's socks will change to be the same color as his skin. It also applies to the white stripes on his shoes, for some reason. While normally being depicted with black or gray eyes, the Pockeys in Waku Waku Sonic Patrol Car are shown to have red eyes. This only applies to their in-game sprites though, since they have normal black eyes on the arcade machine itself. The Master System version of Sonic 2 8-bit has only ever been officially re-released once. That of course is on the Wii's Virtual Console back in 2008. Every other time Sonic 2 8-bit has been re-released in a Sonic game like Sonic Origins or Sonic Adventure DX Director's Cut, it has been the Game Gear version. It's a real shame since I think the Master System version is a much better game than the Game Gear version, and has a notably better soundtrack due to the Master System soundtrack being of higher quality. If you've ever gotten the Supersonic or Extended Super achievements on the Xbox 360 version of Sonic 2, you'll notice that the Supersonic used for the achievement icon is not Supersonic from Sonic 2. Well, the Supersonic sprite used for this achievement is actually a fan-made sprite meant to replicate Sonic Battle's sprite style. This sprite was made by Joe TE, and if you want to take a look at his works, I'll link it in the description below. When Sega Sonic Cosmo Fighter was dumped online in 2017, it was discovered that the working title for this game was Sonic Jet, due to some lines of codes that relate to the game's name. So as we all know by now, when running through Radical Highway, you can find these giant glowing heads based off the character Knights from Nights into Dreams. Well, do you know about the other references that appear throughout the stage? There's a blimp with the phrase "Got Ring" on it, parodying the Got Milk advertising campaign, as well as signs that say Amigo on them, referring to the newly released Sonic Team project Samba de Amigo. Also, I didn't notice this until recently, but you can find a building with Sonic Team's name on it, which is in reference to how Sonic Team USA is based out of San Francisco. Did you know that Sonic the Hedgehog is anti-drug use? Well, according to Sega Sonic Popcorn Shop at least. When the game first starts up, a screen with the official FBI logo on it will appear with the words "Winners don't use drugs" underneath it. During this time, there was a big crack cocaine epidemic sweeping across the United States. To help combat this, all arcade machines imported to the US from 1989 to 2000 by the American Amusement Machine Association included this anti-drug slogan in their machines. In an issue of Mega Machines Sega, a video game magazine published in the UK, they did a segment covering Sonic and Knuckles, and what gamers could expect in the upcoming release of the game. At the bottom of the 20th page, they say, "There are even moves afoot to translate the Sonic the Hedgehog coin-op for the 32X, and we think that's just fab." Aside from the very outdated lingo, it's believed that this Sonic coin operated game that was potentially going to be brought to the 32X was going to be Sega Sonic the Hedgehog. Not only was it the only platformer like Sonic game that was released for the arcades at the time, but it was the only Sonic arcade release that made its way to Europe. Unfortunately, the 32X didn't sell too well, which is probably why this game never made it onto the console. On the back of Sonic CD's Japanese box art, there's a quote from Sonic that reads, "Ask not what others can do for you, but what you can do for others." This is actually a modified quote from 35th President of the United States, John F. Kennedy. In his 1961 inaugural address, he says,
"Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country."
The Game Gear version of Sonic Chaos and the Genesis version of Sonic Spinball were released on the same day in the United States, that being November 23rd, 1993. Now, is this a useless fact for Sonic Chaos, or Sonic Spinball, or both? Well, you'll just have to wait a whole 2 seconds to find out. So you know how some games will get name changes based on what region they were released in? Like how Sonic Unleashed is called Sonic World Adventure in Japan, or Sonic and Tails in Japan is known as Sonic Chaos here in the West? Well, the same is true for Sonic Spinball. Kinda. You see, a lot of early spin-off Sonic games squeezed in the Hedgehog in the titles for their games. So it isn't called Sonic Chaos, it's actually called Sonic the Hedgehog Chaos. Or Sonic Triple Trouble is actually called Sonic the Hedgehog Triple Trouble. So here in the West, Sonic Spinball is called Sonic the Hedgehog Spinball, but in Japan it's known as just Sonic Spinball. However, the title screen for the Japanese version uses the same one as the US version, which keeps the Hedgehog name in the title. Now here's where it gets a little goofy. Since the Master System and Game Gear versions of Sonic Spinball use the same box art as the North American Genesis release of the game, the official title for it is Sonic the Hedgehog Spinball. However, in-game, the title screen just shows the game being called Sonic Spinball. Okay, I do have more to say on this topic, but I'll save it for another game down the road since this entry is already long enough as it is. Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine sees Sonic being completely omitted from the game. He doesn't even appear in the game's manual. If you've ever played Sonic 3's multiplayer mode with friends, which I doubt many of you have, you'd see that there are 5 different courses you can run through. These are Azure Lake, Balloon Park, Chrome Gadget, Desert Palace, and Endless Mine. Well, if you take the first letter in each course's name, you'd see that they are sequential with the start of the English alphabet. Sonic's vehicle in Sonic Drift, the Cyclone, is a red and white sports car that shares its color scheme with Sonic's shoes. If you ever took the time to inspect some of the artwork of it, you'd see that it actually features Sonic's name on the car as well. Notably, it's on the center cap of its tires and on the Cyclone's hood. When booting up Sonic the Hedgehog's game world, Sonic, Amy, and Tails will pop up out of the Sonic emblem, then the background will slowly move upwards to cover them up. Well, if you happen to pay attention to the outline of the background, you can see that the windows and indentations on this building make it look like Robotnik's face. On the title screen of Tails and the Music Maker, Tails can be seen standing on the F and G keys of the keyboard. In fact, we can see every key on the piano he's stepping on except for the C key. Sonic & Knuckles was released October 18th, 1994. This coincidentally lines up with the day I was born, but Sonic & Knuckles beat my brother Jignan and I by 8 years. Interestingly, the goggles that Sonic wears on the cabinet of Sega Sonic Cotton Candy Scramble are different from the ones that we see in game. In game, they seem to be more circular in design, but the ones on the cabinet seem to be more rectangular. When Wacky World's Creativity Studio was released in 1994, it was the first game to be released under the Sega Club umbrella. Sega Club was a subset of games released on the Sega Genesis to show that the console wasn't just made for older kids, but younger ones as well. Only a handful of games were released under this title before it went defunct in 1995, but we still got some great games out of it like Bonkers Wax Up, Echo Jr., and the Berenstein Bears' Camping Adventure. If you collect all the Chaos Emeralds throughout Sonic Triple Trouble, once you beat Robotnik, he will run away from Sonic, dropping a Chaos Emerald before teleporting away. What's strange is that the emerald he drops is the same color as the Chaos Emerald that you collected in Meta Junglera Zone, meaning that there are 2 yellow Chaos Emeralds in this game. Despite classic Amy being depicted with a green shirt in practically all of her appearances, she actually wears a blue shirt in Sonic Drift 2. Usually it's hard to see since her car is also blue, but you can clearly see it when hovering over her in the character select screen. Out of all the characters that you control in Knuckles' Chaotix, those being the 5 who appear on the Japanese box art, Charmy is the only one who doesn't have the as their middle name. Knuckles the Echidna, Vector the Crocodile, SBL the Chameleon, and Mighty the Armadillo all have the in their names, but Charmy is just Charmy B. And before any of you hot shots say I'm forgetting Bomb and Heavy, I'm not. You don't play as those piles of junk, they're just glued to your hip for a whole level if you get unlucky. The programmers of Tales of Sky Patrol spelled program wrong on the game's title screen. Literally all they needed to do was get rid of a couple pixels and they would have been fine. Here, I'll even do it for them. In Tails' Adventure, if you jump, throw a bomb, and then pause the game on a specific frame, it will look like Tails has 3 feet. It almost looks like some of Tails' sprites are being overlapped since none of them on his sprite sheet have him in this position, but I'm not 100% certain if that's actually the case or not. The story of Sonic Labyrinth mentions how Dr. Eggman created the Slowdown Boots, the shoes that Sonic wears throughout Sonic Labyrinth, using Chaos Emerald energy. The Chaos Emeralds have the power to turn thoughts into power, which is how we see them used in the Sonic series. In order to have created these Slowdown Boots, it means that Dr. Eggman gathered some of the Chaos Emeralds, and instead of using them to power some of his machines like you would think, he instead just thought extensively about Sonic's feet. In the music video for Kid Cudi's Stars in the Sky, towards the end of the music video there's a versus screen depicting Kid Cudi and Dr. Robotnik going up against each other in a fight. Well, this versus screen takes clear inspiration from the versus screen seen in Sonic the Fighters. Did you know that Sonic Schoolhouse of all games had some official merchandise? Well, maybe. Around the time Sonic Schoolhouse's release, a tie-in lunchbox was created by Aladdin Industries, a lunchbox manufacturer located in the US. Not much is known about the creation of this product, but a few have popped up over the years, alongside a Sonic Schoolhouse pencil sharpener. On the Japanese box art for Sonic the Hedgehog the Screensaver, we can see an island at the bottom right of the box art that may look familiar to some people. Well, if we take into account the shape of the island alongside the giant crater on the mountaintop, it looks like this island either is or was inspired by Angel Island from Sonic 3 and Knuckles, when it was in the ocean of course, not when it was flying high up in the sky. In the sound test for the Sega Saturn version of Sonic 3D Blast, the song You're My Hero appears 4 times in the 23rd, 24th, 25th, and 26th slots. None of the bosses in Sonic Blast have a name. Instead, they're just referred to as Zone Name Boss. Even the final boss of the game is just called Final Boss. No egg-based puns or anything in this game, which is honestly a real shame. If you like Sonic Jam, why don't you try some real Sonic Jam? These 3 Sonic Jam flavors were given to those who pre-ordered the Japanese version of Sonic Jam. They came in 3 flavors: Blueberry Jam for Sonic, Orange Marmalade for Tails, and Strawberry Jam for Knuckles. If you see these in the wild, it is advised that you do not eat them due to them being expired for over 25 years at this point. Did you know that Sonic R would actually go on to be featured in a TV show? In Season 2, Episode 4 of Malcolm in the Middle, Malcolm and his friend Stevie can be seen playing Sonic R. The 2 of them are playing on Resort Island, and since Stevie is wheelchair-bound, he's playing as the only character who races on wheels in this game, Amy Rose. According to this game's manual, Sonic Jam for the Gamecom takes place entirely on Angel Island. Even though we run through Emerald Hill Zone, as well as Angel Island Zone and Mushroom Hill Zone, the game's manual reads, "Oh no! The evil Dr. Robotnik is back and meaner than ever. Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles need to use all their speed and skill to keep the world a safe place and defend the floating island." The floating island in this case is Angel Island. The LCD game Sega Sonic the Hedgehog was an LCD game that you could win from specific UFO catchers exclusively in Japan. The game came with 3 different shell colors for you to collect if you want to try and collect them all. The first is this blue variant that features Sonic on the left and Tails on the right, each outlined in the color that matches their hair. The orange variant sees Tails in the upper right corner, and I think it looks really cute when drawn in this way. Anyways, on to Sonic Adventure. In Sonic Adventure, if you head to Sonic Speed Highway, you're able to collect 2 speed shoes back to back. There's one on this wall running section at the beginning of the level, then if you immediately drop down from the wall and backtrack, you'll find the second one. Doing so results in Sonic permanently having the speed shoe effect, although it doesn't really do much to help you beat the level any faster. It is a cool effect to have though. Sonic the Hedgehog Pocket Adventure was one of the few games to release as a game bundled with either a gray or blue Neo Geo Pocket color back when it was released. The bundle sold for $99.95 USD, which wasn't really that great of a deal considering the game standalone was $34.95 and the console itself was $69.95. So I mean, you saved $5, but that's about it. The VMU image for Sonic Shuffle is that of Lumina, the guide of the game. In the beginning of the hero story in Sonic Adventure 2, we see that Sonic is locked up in a helicopter before knocking out everyone aboard, ripping off a piece of the helicopter, and diving into the streets of San Francisco. Well, even though the United Nations seems to take place in the real-life United States, the helicopter that has Sonic locked up seems to be based off a Russian MiL Mi-24 gunship. When you encounter Mecha Knuckles in Angel Island Zone, each character has a different reaction to the situation. Sonic looks determined to fight him, Tails looks startled, maybe even scared, Knuckles is just straight up confused, and Amy is dumbfounded at what she's seeing. Sonic Mega Collection Plus shares its release date across both consoles in every region except for Australia. For some reason, the Xbox version was released 2 days earlier in Australia than the PS2 version of the game. Did you know that Sonic Advance 2 has 2 different box arts? At least in Japan, that is. When it was first released in Japan, it was released with box art that looked like this, having the 4 main characters on the box art. When they re-released the game at a discount, the box art was changed to look like this, removing Tails, Knuckles, Cream, and Cheese from the front of the box and changing the pose that Sonic is in. When Sonic Pinball Party first released in the summer of 2003, the only way you could actually buy this game was through Target in North America. It wouldn't be until 2005 when the Sonic Advance and Sonic Pinball Party Combo Pack released that you could purchase the game in other retail stores. Now it should be noted that you could buy the game a few months later on Amazon, but that was only for select countries. Sonic Team seems to exist within Sonic's universe, as shown by the Sonic Team building you can visit in Sonic Battle. Out of the 4 team themes in Sonic Heroes, Team Rose's theme, Follow Me, is the only one to not name any of the characters on the team. We Can, the theme of Team Sonic, says, Team's Dark theme, This Machine, says,
A shadow of myself, just who am I? With words in the fight, electric lives. 1, 2, 3. You didn't know, now I'm gonna show you.
And Team Chaotix, theme of, well, Team Chaotix, says, when picking out your 2 playable characters in Sonic Advance 3, they either have a specific name like Fighting Buddies for Sonic and Knuckles, or just a plain name like OK for Tails and Cream. Well, every unique team name has a unique graphic for that character, alongside having a, let's just say, default look when their team name is just OK. Well, since Sonic has a unique name for every partner character he's with except for Cream, this means that Sonic has a unique sprite for every character he pairs up with, since his default sprite is only ever used once. Although it's not available to play today, the Flash game Sonic the Hedgehog would mark the only time that Super Sonic would make a playable appearance in a browser game. Sega Superstars is the only Sonic-related game that was released exclusively on the PlayStation 2. In the game Sonic X, sometimes you can run past these goalposts with Eggman on them, which will then flip around to show Sonic giving a peace sign. Well, both the Eggman side of the signpost and the Sonic side of the signpost are based off the signposts seen at the ends of acts in Sonic 1. Also, I am now realizing that in the original release of Sonic 1, Eggman didn't have any yellow on his body on his side of the signpost. It was fixed at some point because he has them in the Sonic Origins part of the game, but I can't believe I never noticed this until now. It's actually crazy that they forgot to put this in. Will the disc and box art for Sonic Gems collection have Sonic and Metal Sonic posed in the same way? There's actually a small difference between the two. Sonic and Metal Sonic are spaced slightly farther apart in the disc art compared to the box art. If you look at the blue after image of Sonic's fist, you'll see that the box art shows it close to Metal Sonic's eye, while the disc art has it much farther away. Out of all the series represented in Sega Superstars Tennis, the Sonic series is the only one to get 2 courts representing its series, whereas every other series gets 1. The 2 courts you could play on in the Sonic series are Green Hill Zone and Scrap Brain Zone. The racing game Sonic Kart 3DX for the Sega Cafe game service brings back a track from a previous Sonic game, at least in name. The 5 tracks in this game are Sonic Circuit, White Field, Ancient Ruins, real original guys, Radiant City, and the one we're talking about today, Resort Island. Resort Island is also the name of the first course from Sonic R. The two are nothing alike, but I think it's neat that Sonic Team thought to reference Sonic R in this way. Or it was just an accident and it's not intentional, but I think it's intentional, so that's pretty cool. One of the coolest things that Sonic Rush has is that it implemented some touchscreen controls into the gameplay. Well, playing is a bit of a stretch since you need to be standing still for this to work. While playing the game, if you tap on Sonic or Blaze, they'll do a short little animation. It's pretty cool that Dimps implemented these, and I'm definitely going to try this out in my next run of Sonic Rush. Have you ever wished that you were the one to kill Maria instead of some faceless gun soldier? Well, fear not, my friend, because Shadow the Hedgehog is here. Hop into Lost Impact, plug in a second controller, and make Maria jump to her death. It's that easy. Okay, in all seriousness, here's an actual useless fact about Shadow the Hedgehog. Although the game was aimed towards a more mature audience, the game was actually nominated for for Family Game of the Year in 2006 by the British newspaper company, The Sun. Unfortunately, it ended up losing to Nintendogs, which only makes sense. In volume 197 of Nintendo Power magazine, there's a small excerpt of a then upcoming Sonic game called Sonic Riders. We get a small debrief from Steve T going over what the game looks like and some screenshots from it as well. If we look at the screenshots, we can see one of a new character who Steve believes to be Bean the Dynamite. Of course, this started some rumors of a whole backlog of deep cut characters were going to be put in the game, only for this character to actually just be Jet the Hawk, and the only deep cut characters we got were ones from other Sega IPs. In one of Silver's missions in Sonic 06, you're able to talk to a man named Renzo, who is surprised that Silver can see him. This is because Renzo is actually a ghost who died a long time ago, and his resolve has caused him to stay in the human world. This means that on top of Silver's ESP abilities, he is canonically able to see and converse with the dead. Did you know that one of the characters in Sonic Rivals says a naughty word? While playing through the game, some characters will make grunts or say a word or two when a dialogue box appears. Well, when Knuckles appears on screen, he sometimes says, "Damn." Here it is again without the background music. Damn. I don't know why this is in the game, but I kinda find it funny. Also, I'm just going off memory here, but I think that this makes Knuckles the character that swears in the most amount of Sonic games. I know that he swears in Shadow the Hedgehog, and in the song Deeper that plays in Death Chamber from Sonic Adventure 2. Maybe he swears in Sonic Runners, but I honestly can't remember right now. If you know though, then just let me know in the comments. Also, if you want this sound effect for yourself, for some reason, it's labeled as SFX Voice Knuckle 9.wav on the Sounds Resource website. If you collect all the Chaos Emeralds in Sonic 1 for the GBA, the end credits will be nearly identical to if you collected all the Chaos Emeralds in the original version of Sonic 1. However, whereas a bunch of flowers are added to Green Hill Zone in the Genesis version, no such changes are made to the landscape of the GBA port. So if you saw my fake Sonic Facts video I did for April Fools, you'd probably remember that at one point I mentioned that the secret rings are never mentioned anywhere in Sonic and the Secret Rings script. The 7 world rings are mentioned, but they are never called the secret rings. Well, that wasn't really a joke. After that video I went through, read the whole script for Sonic and the Secret Rings, and yeah, they are never once called the secret rings. In fact, the word secret doesn't appear at all in this game. The only time they could be considered hidden in this game is when Shara says they don't exist, but plenty of characters in this game know what they are. It's just an interesting title choice in my opinion. For Sonic's 18th birthday, Sega did multiple giveaways in France throughout their Facebook and Twitter accounts, including a Knights cameo pack, Sonic Riders Zero Gravity pack, and what's pertinent to this section of the video, a Sonic Rush Adventure pack. This pack included a copy of Sonic Rush Adventure, a Compass keyring, and a Skull and Bones t-shirt that replaced the skull with the Sonic logo. As someone who loves Sonic Rush Adventure, I think this bundle is awesome. Not only do you get a copy of the best 2D Sonic game, but also the t-shirt looks like a pirate flag representing the sailing of the seas like pirates do. That's just all around awesome and something I need in my collection as soon as possible. When Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games was released, there were these trailers released for each team, so you could either see one advertising Team Mario or one advertising Team Sonic. Well, in the Team Sonic one, we see a shot of Eggman where the camera pans a bit, he draws his bow, and then fires. If we try to replicate this in-game, we see that Eggman is on the opposite side as we see in the video. Well, for some reason, it seems like the footage is flipped in the video. Why did they edit it like this? I have no idea. Even though Sonic the Olympic Games' events are all based on real-life events that took place in the 2008 Olympic Games, the developers of the game had to come up with some creative liberties to make the gameplay more intriguing. For example, during the 1500-meter sprint, no giant differently colored platforms were placed throughout the track. Instead, they just ran in a giant oval. Also, while doing research for this entry, I came across the Russian doping scandal that disqualified 3 Russian runners from participating in this event, and I just think that's funny. Don't do that, please. Okay, these past 2 entries have been super long, so let's just throw a couple of shorter entries in here. That one of them being that no character smiles on Sonic Rivals 2's box art. Everyone is mad and trying to kill each other, or just generally confused on what's going on. In the intro cutscene for the hero story in Sonic Riders Zero Gravity, when Sonic activates the Arc of the Cosmos, you can actually see the background through his mouth. In Super Smash Bros. Brawl, Sonic actually has 4 different unlock methods instead of just the usual 3. The one we're probably all familiar with is having him show up at the end of the Subspace Emissary. You can also unlock him by playing 300 versus matches, completing Classic Mode with 10 different characters, or playing 10 hours of versus matches. This 10-hour time is reduced depending on the number of players in the match, however. So if you have 2 people playing, then it's 5 hours, 3 people requires 3 hours and 20 minutes, and 4 players requires 2.5 hours. In the Sonic the Hedgehog Dig, the music used in the background of Green Hill Zone is just a slightly sped up and higher pitched version of Mushroom Hill Zone's music from Sonic and Knuckles. Take a listen. In Sonic Chronicles The Dark Brotherhood, looking at Omega's line art and model shows that the Omega symbol is placed on the front and back of Omega's shoulders instead of just being on his front left shoulder. While playing through Sonic Unleashed, if you head to a Patos during the day, you could find 2 normal cats just chilling doing normal cat things, like judging you for your sins. This means that regular animals, alongside anthropomorphic animals, do in fact coexist in Sonic's world. In the Wii and PS2 versions of Sonic Unleashed, as the Hedgehog, you never actually fight of any Eggman's mechs. Well, I mean any of his robots like we see in the HD version of the game. You do fight the Egg Dragoon at the end of the game, so we'll say you don't find any of his automatically controlled robots as the Hedgehog. Out of the 3 versions of Sonic Unleashed released, the mobile port is the only one that doesn't instantly kill Sonic the moment he goes fully underwater in a level. Whereas the HD and SD versions of the game will punish you for going underwater, the mobile port actively encourages it. According to their entry in the gallery, the townspeople are meant to represent the spirit of the forest. One way they do this is by inhaling carbon dioxide and exhaling oxygen, much like trees do, and the opposite of what humans do. Also, I would like to give a quick thanks to Modwile. I spent the better part of an hour trying to find a picture showing this off, and they found it within 5 minutes somehow. So I would like to give him a huge thanks for his help, and also you guys should head over to his channel and check out some of his videos. I like this one with Sonic holding a gun. Mario and Sonic at the Winter Olympic Games would be the final Sonic game released in the 2000s, releasing in October and November across both the Wii and DS in 2009. If you want to know the final version of this game that was released though, that would be the Wii version released in South Korea, releasing November 19th of 2009. Despite Sonic's name being blue and the Winter Games text being yellow and Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games' title, Sonic at the Olympic Games instead has Sonic in its normal yellow text and Winter Games in blue text. In Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, each character has their own little bio describing their backstory and where they come from. What most of these bios have in common though is telling us which vehicle the racer uses, or just that they use their own body to race. The only racer who this doesn't apply to, however, is Metal Sonic, since his bio never mentions anything about his vehicle. According to Gameloft's website as archived by the Wayback Machine, when Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing first released for Java phones back in 2010, it cost $4.99 to buy. By the end of 2010 though, the game's prices dropped down to $3. Even though the Sonic 20th Anniversary app was developed for, well, Sonic's 20th birthday, the game wasn't actually released on his 20th birthday, at least here in the States. The game was released in time for Sonic's 20th birthday in Japan, which was June 23rd, 2011, but the US and Europe wouldn't receive the game for another couple of months, releasing September 5th, 2011. Sonic Classic Collection reuses a lot of assets and music for the game's artwork and soundtrack. One such example is that the main menu music is the same music used for the background of Sonic World and Sonic Jam. Every zone in Sonic 4 Episode 1 takes inspiration from a pre-existing zone introduced in the classic games. Splash Hill Zone is based off of Green Hill Zone, Casino Street Zone is based off Casino Night Zone, Lost Labyrinth Zone is based off of Labyrinth Zone, Mad Gear Zone is based off Metropolis Zone, and Egg Station Zone is based on Death Egg Zone from Sonic 2. Do you guys remember those things that companies like Nintendo or Microsoft would do with some of their older games where they'd repackage them and sell them at a discounted rate? They'd call these things like Nintendo Selects or Platinum Hits. Well, in Japan, the only Sonic game released on the Xbox 360 to be re-released as a Platinum Hit would be Sonic Freeriders. If you were to pre-order Sonic Colors for the Wii from GameStop back in the day, you'd also get this hat that is in the shape of Sonic's spines on his head. Since some of the wisps differ between the Wii and DS versions of Sonic Colors, the intro for the DS version changes to reflect this. After Sonic rockets out of the ground, instead of using the Spike, Cube, Hover, and Frenzy Wisps, he instead uses a Burst Wisp to zoom in the air, then a Void Wisp to attack the camera. In Sonic Generations, Modern Sonic gets this unique idle animation that plays while underwater, which you'd only ever notice in a level like Chemical Plant's 2D section. But did you know there's actually a spot where you can view this in 3D and while you're not fully submerged underwater? If you head to Seaside Hill, find a shoreline with some water, and have Sonic dip his toes into it, it'll trigger the idle animation to play. He just looks so joyous to be playing in the water. The 3DS version of Sonic Generations swaps the scenery of two of its levels completely. In the console port, the adventure era starts with running through a densely populated city with Speed Highway, then the next level is the first level of its game, that being City Escape from Sonic Adventure 2. The 3DS port swaps these two aspects, with the 3DS version now starting with the first level of Sonic Adventure being Emerald Coast, then having the Sonics run through a densely populated city being Radical Highway. Hopefully that all makes sense, but the TLDR is that the 3DS version just swaps the themes seen in the console port. Mario and Sonic the London 2012 Olympic Games does not introduce any new playable characters into the series. Every playable character in this game can be played in Mario and Sonic the Olympic Winter Games. Did you know you can actually de-superify Super Sonic at will in Sonic 4 Episode 2? Okay, well, besides just running out of rings, you can do it on the spot whenever you're in Sonic Super form. Anytime you need to do a tag team action, Sonic actually reverts back to his regular form in order to perform the action. If you want to transform back into Super Sonic after that, you'll need to collect your 50 rings and then perform the action to turn back into Super Sonic. Since Metal Sonic is a robot, you could stay underwater indefinitely in Sonic 4 Episode Metal, unlike Sonic and Tails who need to go up for air every once in a while. Now, while you may think this fact is useful, you first need to find the willpower to play Sonic 4 Episode Metal, which requires you to buy both Sonic 4 Episode 1 and Sonic 4 Episode 2, which I bet not many of you have. Then you need to find a body of water that you could actually see yourself spending a lot of time in, which is only like 1, maybe 2 spots throughout the whole game. So yeah, this is pretty useless. When selecting a character in Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, the announcer will say their name. For example,
BD Joe, Team Fortress, Sonic.
Well, each character has a couple of different announcer clips that change the tone of his voice. One clip usually has the announcer sound more monotone.
Mimi.
Then one that sounds more cheerful.
Mimi.
This is the same across most of the cast, except for Danica Patrick. Hers only uses one voice clip, no matter what.
Danica Patrick. Danica Patrick. Danica Patrick.
Unlike previous Sonic games that had 1, 2, or even 3 acts per zone, Sonic Jump has 11, that's right, 11 acts per zone. That's not even including the boss act. So altogether there are 12 acts per zone, which is just insane. Have you ever heard of this Sonic game called Sonic Ghost Shooting? In Tokyo, for a fee of 500 yen, you were able to ride on this little coaster shooting ghosts in order to rack up points. It was only in Sega's Tokyo Joypolis for around 3 years, but it's still cool to see that something like this existed. The mobile game Sonic Dash has, at the time of recording, 41 achievements for you to try and achieve in this endless runner. One such achievement, called SBO is clearly ready to go, wants you to run 20,000 meteors as SBO in one run in order to complete it. The name of this achievement is based off a line from Team Chaotic's theme, where Gunnar Nelson sings, when playing the long jump event in Sonic Athletics, when your character jumps during the event, they will leave behind a rainbow trail. Did you know that Orbot and Cubot are actually playable in Sonic Lost World? If you've only ever played the PC version, then you're probably confused. And if you've played the Wii U version, you're probably also confused because it's been a decade. In the circus minigames that are exclusive to the Wii U version of Sonic Lost World, Orbot or Cubot have a chance to appear as one of the playable characters in the circus minigame that appear in each zone. If we take a look at the back of Sonic Lost World's 3DS box art in the US, we see this spot on the back that shows off Sonic's new moves, new powers, and most importantly, new worlds that don't look different than previous zones, which is just insane. Well, if you look at literally any other version of the box art, aside from the Japanese or Canadian versions, the new powers and new worlds sections on the back of the box art are swapped for some unknown reason. Another Sonic attraction that was open in Sega's Tokyo Joypolis is Sonic's Brain Raking. It was an attraction that would test players' knowledge of the Sonic series, and the people with the most speed and accuracy had a higher chance of winning. It closed down in 2018 unfortunately, and I can't find any footage of it online, but it looks like something that a lot of us would be good at with all this useless trivia we've been learning today. Even though Sonic Generations never came to Wii U, we still got some sort of history of Sonic representation in Mario and Sonic at the Sochi 2014 Olympic Winter Games. The Dream Event Hole-in-One Curling takes place in Green Hill Zone, the Roller Coaster Bobsleigh takes place in Speed Highway, and the Bullet Bill Sledge Race takes place in Sweet Mountain. So we have an event that takes place in a classic era level, one that takes place in a Dreamcast era level, and one that takes place in a modern era location. Out of all the countries in the world that could have gotten early access to Sonic Jump Fever, Canada actually received Sonic Jump Fever 2 months earlier than the rest of the world, releasing April 16th, 2014, whereas the rest of the world got it July 10th, 2014. Every version of Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric has the word lyric in its title. The French version is called Sonic Boom La Ascension de Lyric, which just means Sonic Boom Lyric's Ascension. The Spanish version calls the game Sonic Boom El Ascenso de Lyric, which translates to Sonic Boom The Ascent of Lyric. You get the idea. Well, the Japanese version of the game is titled Sonic Kutu Un Taiko no Hiho, which translates to Sonic Tune Ancient Treasure, completely omitting Lyric's name from the title. Sonic Boom Shadow Crystal was the first 3DS Sonic platformer to have playable characters that weren't just Sonic. Every playable character in Sonic Dash 2 Sonic Boom had their own special event at one point in time, except for Sonic. The titles for all these events were Shadow's Run, Amy's Dash Smash, Knuckles' Badnik Blitz, Styx' Combo Charger, Tails' Ring Rush, and Vector's Treble Makers. There's a glitch with Sonic that results in Sonic having two mouths whenever he rolls forward or backwards. Whenever Charmy is a playable character in a platformer, we usually only see him flying around instead of standing on the ground. Well, Sonic Runners actually changes this, having Charmy start off by jogging instead of flying slightly off the ground like he's done before. So here's another Sonic arcade machine I didn't know existed, Sonic Dash Extreme. Sonic Dash Extreme is essentially an arcadeified version of Sonic Dash, giving players a minute to run to the end of an area of their choosing and then fighting against Dr. Eggman. The arcade machine was released in 2015 in European countries, so unfortunately, this game's legacy is tainted by the sole fact that British people got to play it. Mario and Sonic at the Rio 2016 Olympic Games is the only Mario and Sonic game to release across the Wii U and 3DS systems. The London 2012 version was released on the Wii and 3DS, and the 2014 version was a Wii U exclusive. Also, I just thought I should mention, there was also an arcade version of this game released in 2016. Sonic Boom Fire and Ice would mark the final 3DS game that Sanzaru Games would work on, and also the final Sonic game that they would develop. They still helped develop games for other Nintendo consoles like the Spyro Reignited trilogy for the Switch, but nothing else for the 3DS. Whenever Sonic dies in LEGO Dimensions, instead of his minifigure exploding like what we see for most of the cast in this game, he actually plays his dying animation like we see in the classic Sonic games. While playing through Sonic Runner's Adventure, you'll sometimes collect bonus items that take you to a place in space once you beat the level. Within this area, you can find tons of rings. Some of these rings actually form words such as nice or cool. In Sonic Mania's Studiopolis zone, you could find these clapper boards that reflect how much time you've spent in the level, as well as recording how many times you've bounced on it as the number of takes done. These clapper boards also have a bunch of different logos and abbreviations on them, which reference the teams and the people that helped develop Sonic Mania. There's the Sega logo, CW, which stands for Christian Whitehead, HC, which stands for Headcanon, and PWG, which stands for Pagoda West Games. Alongside Sonic Team, Sega Hardlight was also credited as one of the main developers for Sonic Forces. They've previously worked on Sonic Mobile and arcade games in the past, making this the first Sonic game for PC that they would help develop. Oh, and I should specify that Hardlight only worked on the PC port of the game, not any of the console ports. Zaz and Dr. Eggman share the unique fact that despite both being bosses in Sonic Dash, they're playable characters in Sonic Forces Speed Battle. Prior to update 2.0.0 in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, there was a glitch that allowed Ridley to instantly knock out Sonic. On any 2D stage, if Ridley grabbed Sonic with a Space Pirate Rush while Sonic was recovering from a homing attack near the edge, Sonic would just instantly die. My man didn't even have time to react. He was just gone. Out of all the wisps that appear as items in Sonic Racing iOS, there are 2 that didn't make the cut for being items. Well, 3 if we want to count the Mother Wisp. Those wisps are the Purple Frenzy Wisp that debuted in Sonic Colors for the Wii, and the Indigo Asteroid Wisp that made its first appearance in the console version of Sonic Lost World. Unlike other Sonic Racing games, Team Sonic Racing doesn't limit the number of players that can play as one character. So you could, in theory, make a team of 3 Sonics or 3 Zavoks, but I think my favorite is having a team made up of 12 Chao. I mean, this is technically something that could happen canonically, since Omochao and Chao themselves aren't unique. They're just a species of animal, and in Omochao's case, they're just a mass-produced robot. In Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020, some of the characters can be seen shirtless during swimming events. One of these characters is of course Dr. Eggman, who's just letting everything show for the crowd. On the official Olympic video games website, the section that promotes Sonic and the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020 has a section that shows off all the playable characters that appear in the game. Looking at Shadow's render that they used, we can see that Shadow's shoes are really dirty and he needs to get those cleaned. One of the absolutely essential changes that Sonic Colors Ultimate made to the original game was the font used for cutscenes. It's pretty obvious to tell in a few of the game's cutscenes, but I'm unsure why the change was made in the first place. In Sonic Speed Simulator, if you make your way over to Metal City Skate Park, you can see a billboard of Sonic referencing his adventures in Emerald Coast from Sonic Adventure, with his hero's render appearing on the billboard as well. Although, the colors seem to be edited to make Sonic's whole body different colors of blue. Okay, so remember like a half hour ago when I was ranting about Sonic Spinball? This game has something interesting to add to that discussion. So I was going to go to Sonic Origins and see what Sega themselves classify the 8-bit version of Sonic the Hedgehog Spinball should be called, which, by the way, is just Sonic Spinball, but the description reads that the 16-bit version of the game was released on the Genesis in 1993 in only US and PAL regions, which is just wrong? The game released in Japan a little under a month later, but they could just be talking about the Genesis console by name and not the Mega Drive, but that would also be wrong since it's called Mega Drive everywhere else outside of North America. I honestly have no idea what they meant when they were writing this out. They should have just said that the game was released in 1993 with a Game Gear port releasing in 1994. If there's something I'm missing, just let me know, but I am really confused right now. In Tails' lab in the Sonic Minecraft DLC, you can find Froggy just chilling by himself. He's probably just hiding from Big again, which is totally understandable. Sonic Frontiers currently holds the biggest gap between mainline game releases. Sonic Frontiers released on November 8th, 2022, with Sonic Forces releasing November 7th, 2017 in most regions, and November 9th, 2017 in Japan. So this means that Frontiers released either 5 years and 1 day after Sonic Forces in every region except for Japan, or 4 years and 364 days later in Japan. At the beginning of the murder of Sonic the Hedgehog, you're given the ability to name your character whatever you like, as long as it doesn't trigger this game's profanity filter. However, there are some names like Chris Thorndike that aren't profane in their own right, but do feature an obscene or obscene-like word in their name. In Sonic Superstars, Trip the Sungazer is the only character in the character select menu to not have an alternate costume. Even Eggman gets an alternate costume, and he isn't even a playable character.
I come to make an announcement.
Sonic Dream Team introduces the character Ariam to the series, who has a pretty interesting naming scheme. Instead of naming her something like Sleep, which would be pretty on point for the series, her name is composed of the words Aries and Rem. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, and is represented by the ram, which Ariam is. The second half of her name, Rem, comes from REM sleep, or rapid eye movement sleep, which is a critical high brain activity stage where most vivid dreaming occurs. Pretty cool naming scheme if you ask me. In Shadow Generations, most of the levels feature enemies that are part of Gun, the Eggman Empire, or the Black Arms. The only level that doesn't feature any of these kinds of enemies is Chaos Island Act 2. Act 1 almost makes the cut, but literally a single type of Black Arms enemy shows up towards the end of the level. But the only kind of enemy that appears in Act 2 are the enemies seen throughout Sonic Frontiers. The cartridge for the Sonic 3 promo game on the Genesis was made to look like the box art for Sonic Adventure 2, whereas the box art itself resembles the box art for Sonic 3 on the Genesis. As of March 2026, Sonic Rumble had its name changed to Sonic Rumble Party. When Knights was added into Sonic Racing Crossworlds, the release date was set to December 24th, 2025. This seems to be a nod to Knight's close relationship with Christmas, since there's literally a game called Christmas Nights into Dreams, as well as Knights replacing Lumina as the guide of the game in Sonic Shuffle if your Dreamcast internal clock is set to December 24th. And that's 500 useless facts about the Sonic the Hedgehog series. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more useless Sonic content. And hey, if you know a useless fact I missed, if I got something wrong, or there's a game I missed, let me know in the comments down below. If there's another series you want me to talk about, let me know in the comments down below as well. A special thanks to this channel's members, those being Altrex, Jigsmane, Lily, Neonix, Lily Guido, MC Dexpo, Maria, Spionator, and Shane Bagan. All members get their names on this canvas in my office, as well as some other perks like their name in the description of my videos. With that all being said, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have a great day. Peace.